2026. We have a fairly packed agenda tonight, so let's just go ahead and get into it. First of all, could I get a motion to adopt tonight's agenda, or asking for any adjustments or amendments to tonight's agenda? I think the one item I would add to it is a brief discussion about Rec Barn resources to support the WAA and the team heading to the Little League World Series. So maybe we can make that item 8. That would be, what letter? C8.
Okay.
Any other adjustments or amendments to tonight's agenda?
No.
All righty, let's go ahead and get a motion then to adopt tonight's agenda.
Motion to adopt tonight's agenda as amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, hearing none, this agenda is now adopted. So we'll kick off our business item. The first one is, we have a few items actually, regarding CRTPO. This first one is just a simple amendment to the Memorandum of Understanding. This one's really, really straightforward in that, let's see here, there's a name change going on. The officials are going to move.
Talking about the MTP.
Yeah, the Metropolitan Transit Commission will now be the Metropolitan Public Transportation Authority throughout the document. So basically we're replacing MTC with MPTA. Not a lot else is being done. So if you looked over those red lines, you'll see that that is the only change. So I don't see much here. I am obliged to get the board's support before I can formally vote and approve my support of the MOU. So there will be a resolution at the next meeting confirming the board supports the red lines to the MOU. So any discussions, or are we all good with the red lines to the MOU?
Looks good.
Sounds good.
All right. In that case, can we just go ahead and throw that on the consent agenda? This is a fairly small item. These changes are really secretarial almost in nature. So I think we can just throw that on the consent agenda. Make things easy. All right. Next up is a little bigger item. I did send out to everybody some background information regarding the I-77 South Express Lanes project. If folks have been paying attention, there's been some stories in the media. The long story short is that the Charlotte City Council has put forward a resolution to change their vote, rescinding their support for the I-77 South funding method. It's a 3P project, or a public-private partnership project, where a large corporation will file a bid. If they win the bid, they will then build an express lane that will be a toll lane, or a managed lane, as they like to say, and that will be managed by a third party, a private entity. The vote was back in 2024 at a CRTPO meeting after a long and lengthy explanation over the course of several meetings by DOT explaining the significance of this vote. But the vote and the scope of the vote for CRTPO and its board was the approval of the funding method. And unfortunately, what DOT laid out was a long, lengthy description, basically translating into, this is the only way we're going to fund it. The state will give us $600 million for a $3.2 or $3.3 billion project. So that had to do with restrictions of how much money the state gives to each region. Because there's limits on that, there's limits on how much the state will fund to this project. For those not familiar, this is I-77 from basically where the managed lanes end north of town all the way to the South Carolina border, commonly referred to as I-77 South. So what I wanted to do with this is there's going to be another vote coming in September where the CRTPO board will have another chance to either continue to rescind support or switch vote again to reaffirm support. So since our board composition has changed since the last vote, I just wanted to make sure I had a full understanding of the will of the Waxhaw board by getting a resolution to confirm whether or not the town of Waxhaw fully supports the 3P funding model for I-77 South, or if the town of Waxhaw would like to join some of the other municipalities that have recently rescinded support.
The municipalities that did rescind support do receive a penalty, correct?
There has been some discussions to that effect. My understanding is that it's still with the General Assembly. I don't know how it's proceeded at this point, if it's still looking like it's going to move forward, but that threat is definitely out there.
Well,
It was based on that 64 million that they put into planning and all that stuff.
Yes, there are millions of dollars that have already been spent in the engineering and design work. There's been a considerable amount of design work already put into play, and there is $600 million of funding from the state at play. I think one of the big questions nobody has answered is where does that money then go? At this point, it's safe to say that it goes back into the state coffer, and there's no guarantee it comes back to our region.
I would bet it wouldn't come back to our region.
I think that's a safe assumption.
Yeah.
So yes, from what I listened to an interview with Representative Sawyer, I believe her name was, who wrote the budget amendment or was part of writing the budget amendment, and she seemed quite serious about imposing a penalty, that so much so that they did write a budget amendment.
Yep.
It's there, and
Yep.
so I believe Charlotte would be responsible for, like, I don't know, $40 million or
Most of it,
something like
yes.
that. And anybody else would be whatever percentage, and anybody who would not support it could kiss any state funding on projects goodbye.
It would probably have a negative impact on how the state views those municipalities and their willingness to support it.
So,
It's kind of weird that it's a situation where this late in the game, you can even scuttle that amount of money.
Exactly. And that's the big thing, is this I-77 South as a project was voted on years ago. And the vote in *24 was the vote to approve the funding mechanism, not to vote to approve and execute the project. The vote to approve and execute the project was a long, long time ago. So DOT, I think, still has an interest in doing the project. It just scuttles its funding. And at this point, is DOT going to go to work securing funding from the state? Who knows? But the folks that I spoke with at DOT during the last CARPO meeting made it clear that they do not currently have an alternate funding method.
Are they going to look at their, sequence of approvals to try and avoid this happening in the future? Because it seems
Potentially.
something's wrong if this is even coming up as an issue.
Exactly. One of the questions that came up at the CARPO meeting, was it even legal to rescind support for something that's already been supported?
Right.
Yeah.
Can you vote on something and then 2 years later surreptitiously unvote on something? So that, I think, is still a legal question that is being discussed.
And what was the major reason for them rescinding, or these communities like Charlotte and I think
It's the affected
Monroe,
communities. The affected communities mounted a fairly successful political campaign or sort of grassroots effort to try and sway both the Charlotte board, and they were trying to sway the bulk of CARPO itself. By and large, when you compare the '24 vote against the vote from a couple months ago, the only real change was Charlotte. And Charlotte having 30 of the 68, 72, I think, 35 of the 72 some odd votes, obviously their weight carries. There were some other 3-vote municipalities, the county, for instance, Mecklenburg County, Matthews, Huntersville, Cornelius, a few others that were not in support as well. But obviously the lion's share goes to Charlotte. And if Charlotte wants or doesn't want something, the only time you beat Charlotte is if everybody is in lockstep. That's the only time Charlotte could be voted down because of the nature of the weighted votes. So all of this happened because the Charlotte City Council kind of changed its mind and shifted its vote.
Based on what rationale?
I think that's a fair question. A lot of it that you hear is the impact to the community. This doesn't solve congestion. A lot of those types of arguments. We need alternate forms of transportation, money for buses and trains and such. I think the argument for buses is an interesting argument because I don't see many people getting on a bus if it's going to take them 45 minutes to get down the road. Whereas if you had a managed lane where buses ride for free, you get down the road in 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So having that managed lane could benefit buses and commuter traffic better than not having it, and just adding more buses and things and adding trains. The cost of trains, for instance, is far exceeding $3 billion to do anything with a choo-choo train. So it's those types of arguments that a lot of the folks were raising. But the road is there, the interstate is there. One of the arguments I made is that it's an interstate. It's not there to get you to Charlotte, it's there to get you through Charlotte.
Yeah, that's the point I was going to make.
So it's currently a bottleneck. I've gone to the theater, I've gone to concerts, I've gone to shows on a Thursday night, a Friday night, a Saturday night, and getting into Charlotte in the evenings to catch shows and things can be a challenge as well. So that's why I personally supported it, even though I hate managed lanes. I think it's a terrible way to go, and I think the state needs to take responsibility and fund these things. But the idea of it either happens as a toll lane or it doesn't happen at all, that's what DOT presented CRTPO, and CRTPO voted to support it, and now they have rescinded it.
Well, looks
Yeah,
like we know, looks like that's the direction we're going to go, right? You supported it, we'll support it.
Yeah, if the board is in support, we can approve a resolution. That way I can go to CRTPO and vote as a representative of the town of Waxhaw and not just the mayor of Waxhaw. So I can represent the board in its entirety by saying I have a resolution voicing support. So if the board agrees to that, then we can get that done at the next board meeting.
Yeah, I agree with your sentiments about, that it would be great if the state could just fund it, but
Exactly.
yeah, I don't like that funding mechanism either, but I would also hate to scuttle that amount of money at this point, and so I would support a yes vote,
Yeah, and you're supporting a say or relief valve for the traffic, and there's people in this region that have the means to pay the extra money. Not that I'd want them to. I join you in your sentiment about the state funding, but you have the option for a safety valve or a relief valve.
Exactly.
And it just depends. Do you plan ahead, or do you?
Yeah.
Are you in a hurry enough to, or how big of a hurry are you? So I would support the funding mechanism.
Yeah, agreed, and to the point, if you don't, you're not making friends. If you're
Exactly.
pulling, if you want to go ahead and ask for something later, so.
Certainly. Dadson?
I believe it, Barbie, correct me if I'm wrong, but the board has the option to adopt that resolution this evening, if it so chooses. It's built into your meeting rules that you could adopt that resolution tonight,
Perfect.
and it is in front of you if you wanted to take action on that this evening.
Okay. I haven't read the resolution as it's been written yet. Is it in here in the package?
It should be.
Yeah,
Okay.
look good to me.
After the MOU.
I've got it right here if you want to borrow this.
I wanted to make sure I was clear on that with Barbie, because I do know on your business items, it's not listed there, but it is in whole. James, can they do it at the 11th and still be in time? So the board would have time. If the board wishes to go with its normal procedure, it could read it, ask any more questions, and it could be on your meeting on the 11th as well, Mr. Mayor. We did not put it on there. I'm mistaken on that, so.
Yeah.
Sorry, Barbie.
I saw it. It looked good to me.
But you do have the 11th of August date. Sorry. Every once in a while.
So you have project cost here at 4.3, and it's actually like 3.4. Switch those two.
If you'd like to play safer, we could do it for the 11th. You're
Let's
not
go
going to
ahead and do
run out of
that.
time. It'll be before your CARPO meeting, so you'll be able to go in with that
Exactly, with that in
resolution
hand.
after the 11th. Is that
But on that
correct?
third whereas, you say 4.3,
Yeah.
and it's been estimated 3.3 to 3.4, so.
That was James's number.
Has that been updated to 4.3?
Yeah, so what staff did was we looked at the actual program STIP or STIP, and
Okay.
it shows a total of 4.3 billion.
Okay, no, if that's the real numbers, that's the real number, so be it. And at this point, it's still safe to say that all we're getting from the state is 600 million of the 4.3. So, okay, so yeah, let's go ahead and we'll do that at the next meeting. We'll have that vote so we can take some time to digest it thoroughly. All righty. Thank you very much for the input and the feedback. We will move on to the next item, number 3, the fall call for projects. Mr. James Kelly, what do you got?
Put James on the spot.
And Barbie, could you pass the clicker there as well? Well, good evening. So this is your annual fall call for projects from the CRTPO. For those listening in, you may not know who CRTPO is. What is the fall call? CRTPO is the Charlotte Regional Transportation Planning Organization that we were just talking about with some other items. CRTPO receives direct attributable or DA funds to be allocated to member jurisdiction projects on a competitive basis. And what this fall call does is it really supports projects that improve the community's transportation system across different project categories, those being highway, bicycle, pedestrian, transit, air quality, and transportation planning. So every year, CRTPO announces this fall call. It's your opportunity as a board to identify what projects you want to submit for grant funding. It includes new discretionary transportation capital projects, supplemental fund requests if there's any shortfalls on your existing projects, and new planning study projects or feasibility studies and those types of things. So this presentation was provided at CRTPO, but it gives an overview of all the projects that CRTPO currently has active with other municipalities across the region. So there's currently 121 active projects, and you can see Waxhaw makes up 3 of those projects, being the Kensington Drive improvements, the Broome Street improvements, and the Helms Road extension, of which 2 of our projects are currently in the design phase, and 1 is about to move toward construction here. As far as timeline is concerned, we will need some direction and feedback from the board because August 17th is when the annual call opens. So we're looking to get some direction from you all at your next regular meeting on what grant opportunities you want to pursue, if any. Because we need this decision because the fall call closes October 30th. So we want to make sure that staff has adequate time to prepare any documents and get that submitted to CARPO for review. After the submission, the TCC or Technical Coordinating Committee, which is your staff level folks, get together to score the projects with CRTPO staff based upon the Discretionary Grants Policy Program Guide. The TCC workshops helps to develop a recommended project list to then bring forth to the CRTPO member, Mayor Murray, for information in January, and then ultimately request action on projects in February, and then get those amendments completed in March, April. So that's your general timeline. Fall call funding availability is higher than previous years. Normally it is around 30 million or so. This year is higher because there was a surplus last year, which carries over to this year. So this year there's approximately 52 million in funding, in total funding available, spread across different fiscal years. There is a catch. There always is a catch. So per project category, so whether the project is a planning project, a highway project, or a non-highway project, are these funding caps. So with planning projects, those funding caps are around 1% or 500,000. Highway projects, that award cap is 25% of the available funding, and that 25% is broken down from the 80-20 split between your highway and non-highway projects. So when it comes to award caps, the highway projects are capped at 10.37 million requested funding from CARPO, and the non-highway is 2.59 million. Here's some history as far as what these average award projects are granted at from CRTPO. When it comes to planning projects, 20% usually is upheld for that. However, in recent years, with highway projects and non-highway projects, there is an increased local match in order to be competitive. So the average is about greater than 40% local match on highway projects and greater than 30% on non-highway projects for you to really be competitive with the CRTPO grants. As far as eligibility criteria, there's 5 things that make the project eligible, the first being federal aid eligibility. So the project must be on the federal aid system map. It's a map of different roadways throughout the region, and it must be on that map. And then it also must be adopted, must have adopted plan compliance. So if it's not on that map in particular, it must be on your locally adopted maps or CRTPO maps, such as the CTP, MTP, CIP. If you don't have an adopted plan, or if the project is not on an adopted plan, or on any of your locally adopted plans, such as like a pedestrian plan, for example, is not compliant. So you want to make sure that whatever projects you look at are on your adopted plans. Eligible activities, we've already discussed that. That's your planning projects, your design, right-of-way construction, feasibility studies, that sort of thing. And they must address a clear problem and solution. That one's pretty simple. The last one is, of course, your local minimum match, with that local minimum match being 20% for all the projects, but really you need to be higher than that to be competitive at this level. So staff has brought forth some of the top 2 scoring projects that we think might score high at CRTPO, and we've already discussed some of these projects with CRTPO. Some of them have been previous grant submittals, and CRTPO has iterated, yes, these are great projects to submit. This is not all-inclusive, but these are the top 2 that staff is recommending and seeking board direction on. The first is a corridor study or a feasibility study on the Waxhaw Parkway East. This falls under the planning category, so you are locked in at the 20% minimum match. You don't need to go anything higher than that for this category. Staff estimated a total cost of that study to be around $300,000, so the local town match of that would be approximately $60,000, with the remaining funds being state and federal at $240,000. One of the key things that has changed, and people may ask, well, you know, what's the reason to study this again, is there has been a very, very significant change in the past year, which is that through CRTPO and through the Federal Highway Administration, the urban area boundary has been adjusted. So what this means is before the project was in the rural area boundary, now it's in the urban area boundary, which means staff can explore lower design speeds. We can explore different geometry when it comes to like vertical, horizontal curves and that sort of thing, where basically projects that or alignments that we couldn't consider before due to the restrictions, we can now consider. So I know some folks have brought forth some alignments in the past, and we had to rule those out before because it was just not mathematically possible. Now it is mathematically possible. So it opens the door for potential for a future feasibility study and coordination with some folks. The second option is what staff has applied for in previous years, which is the Kensington Drive multi-use path, which falls under that non-highway category. This one has a much larger price tag. In order to be competitive, staff is recommending a 40% local match. The reason being is because of that award cap. So that award cap is $2.59 million. So to fall under that award cap, which is that 60% state and federal number, we have to at least do 60% to meet that cap.
40%.
Correct. So 40% for your local match and 60% for your state or federal or CRTPO funds. So that state and federal has to be lower than $2.59 million in this category. So we're right at the borderline 2.5. This is a project that picks up where we're going to be leaving off with the current Kensington Drive project, where we're adjusting the speed limit to 35 miles per hour between NC-16 and Connells Point. I know you all can always explore other sections along Kensington-Cuthbertson Road as far as design speed and that sort of thing. But the main reason for just this section, why it's important, is because the roadway super elevation, when it was constructed reverse. So that's why there's such a slow speed limit on that road. is because to account for that reverse super elevation or reverse geometry of the road, of what it should be.
The banking is
the
opposite
banking,
what it should be, yeah.
correct. It's banked incorrectly. So we're fixing that as the part of the first part of this project, and then if you all would like to explore the opportunity, you may want to just put this as a parking lot item and see if there's more funding available next year. Maybe that will help decrease that local match, but that's for your discussion. I will say a previous CRTPO submittal did fall just below the funding threshold. We were at 30% in a previous year, and it fell just below that threshold. Over 40% is almost a guarantee award for that project.
And that particular project too, it would be connecting with some of the existing Kensington Road, North Broome, 16, some of those improvements that are already in play right now to, what is it, Connells Point Road or Avenue. So it would basically connect from there, getting you all the way then to Waxhaw Marvin Road.
Correct. So this one of the key things here, like the mayor has mentioned, is that with this project, it would provide for that full connection between Waxhaw Marvin Road. We'll ultimately connect to our already programmed projects at Millbridge with the traffic signal, some pedestrian improvements that we're doing at Waxhaw Marvin and Kensington Drive. So you really be able to connect with this full project, the Millbridge neighborhood, the Quellen neighborhood, Cureton, et cetera. So you would really connect those three primary neighborhoods to NC16, which ties in with the future NC16.
It would definitely give
project.
the Cureton and Quellen neighborhoods ready access to Town Creek Park, and which we all know is connected kind of through the backside to the elementary school, which can then lead you to, what is it, Nesbitt Park? So,
Correct, yeah.
That section of road really is a speed limit bottleneck with the super elevation area. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then this would also include pedestrian connection. So, you know, could help with traffic if people are able to walk their kids to school or, yeah.
I completely agree. It's very, very helpful. It's just whether the board is comfortable with the price tag.
It's a hefty price.
It's a hefty price tag. Yeah.
With everything else
Mhm.
we have programmed. So
And I think Scott's going to be talking about
I
that.
just want to be that reminder
Yeah.
of the price tag.
Aw.
Sorry to be Debbie
Sorry,
Downer.
kids.
I'll take your Debbie Downer role for this
Okay.
evening.
And since we're on this slide too, I think when it comes to item 1 and the corridor study for Parkway East, I think one of the things that we have discussed extensively is keeping it within the town limits. And when we say adjusted urban area boundary, that doesn't mean exceeding or going beyond necessarily town limits. And I think the idea there is to attempt to control our own fate at least, and find a solution that people can be happy with and stand behind.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah, I mean, right now, there are about, I don't know, how many alignments? It looks like a pot of spaghetti on that map. I mean,
6
I
or
think,
7, wasn't it?
At least,
Yeah.
at least.
You know, I think with all those alignments being on there the way they are, it's really holding people hostage on those alignments because you never know which one they're going to go with. And now nobody can sell their home and it's affecting their property value and you kind of like, well, what do I do? Like now I'm stuck. And it's not a secret that I'm not a fan of the current alignment. It goes through an established neighborhood. I know that if you're looking at an aerial view, it looks like a lot of trees and it's only, you know, people out there will say it only affects 2 or 3 houses. That's easy for you if it's not your house. And you're not raising your family in that house and your grandkids aren't coming over. They're 10-acre tracts. There's horses and sheep and it's not undeveloped land. You know, it is a community. I liken it to putting it through Cureton or putting it through Millbridge.
Yeah. It's got an HOA.
It's got an HOA, they have CC&Rs. It's not just individuals' homes out in the country, which I think many out there don't understand that. And so it is a hot button issue and I think we need to, and the county and Mineral Springs are not on board. So they're not going to vote for it. So maybe, well not maybe, we should really try to keep it within Waxhaw. And I think DOT should be able to do that. Now, would we be able to give them that input? Is that something that they would take into consideration, that's the direction we'd like to go?
Short answer, yes. So
Okay.
as a part of any feasibility study, it would involve outreach with all your partners, which could include Mineral Springs, Union County, especially those two partners in particular, and public input as well.
Okay.
But essentially, if given the opportunity, this could explore those alternatives within Waxhaw's limits,
Yeah.
and start to look at, what's now possible with this federal change.
And would it keep like the ridiculous options off the table, like plowing down through the downtown historical district?
That was one option looked at before. We didn't want to scare folks with that option.
Well, you
But,
did.
But I guess how about we do this? What if we presented it in a way of alternatives with breakdowns of like impacts, like similar to what we did last time? Look at those impacts, and then you all decide as far as
Yeah.
which
I
route.
just want them to be serious considerations, because I don't know, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here, that none of us would support tearing down the downtown. So
Of course.
I think that's like, don't even bother
Yeah.
with that one.
Yeah.
You know,
I
so,
think we as a board should try to come up with, if this gets green lit and they decide to do this exercise, I think as a board, we should give them sort of 3 to 5 sort of key, absolutely positively's. And obviously, one of those would be, you're not tearing down any historic buildings downtown. We're not cutting into our retail base downtown.
yeah,
and that
little
type of
things,
stuff.
little things like
So
that.
I think it'd be good if we could give some of those criteria to DOT, so it gives them something to work with, so they at least know maybe what not to do.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So we'll just consider those options as non-starters.
Yeah.
In the feasibility study, say, hey, this is what we've seen. This is considered a non-starter for us, and then work to figure out which design works the best for you all.
Yep.
And while this planning study is going, can we just modify our transportation plan so that we could extend the existing Parkway East stub to Waxhaw Indian Trail Road and submit that as a separate project that might be more likely to be funded because it's going to be a hell of a lot cheaper, just that piece, right? And it would create connectivity. So
Yeah, that's a great point. I think you can already with your adopted plan. So your adopted master transportation plan shows an alignment. That's just a line on a map which can change. So if you're saying let's just do the segment between 16 and Waxhaw Indian Trail,
Yeah.
and look at that one specifically, that is definitely an option.
yeah, and remove the rest of it from the map while we do the planning.
I agree.
Good point. Great.
What
What's
else
next?
you got?
All right. So I
What's
guess
number
the
3?
question is, are you all?
Do you want to go to,
Yeah, go to the next piece.
well, Matt, you
Sure.
see. Let's get back to the presentation.
Yes,
The presentation is
Yep.
that we're going to need direction from the board. This sounds like something you like, number one. You also like number two. I think it would be good to hear the balance. We're not asking for a decision tonight, so it is a working session, so your input's really, really helpful right now. It opens up on the 17th of August, so you'll have another work session to work through this. You can call another work session if you need it. You can do a couple of things if you really want to spend a lot of time. But I did want to at least get us back to making sure we gave you the full thing so you could have the full understanding of what potentially is there. We may not have something that you want on this list. So you all need to have that discussion and direct. So is it okay if James goes to the next page?
Please.
That was a great tee up into some other options that we're currently looking at as well, based upon your adopted plan. So one option is the Waxhaw Marvin and Gray Byram intersection improvements. So it's currently unsignalized right now. So the scope of a project like that would be to add a traffic signal at the intersection. I will note that with some already approved development and off-site mitigations, there's currently programmed turn lanes being added at the intersection as a part of the ADDENDUM development. Those mitigations are projected to take place over the few years, and once complete, it'll greatly reduce the overall cost of the project. So what I'm saying there is it may be best to hold off until a future fall call, because right now with those improvements, the Adelina development will be greatly decreasing the cost of what that project could be.
And I think the roundabout at Bonds Grove Church will alleviate a lot of pressure on that, because that roundabout might just encourage people to just go a little further up,
Yep.
because they're not that far apart, so.
And then we have, which we don't know when this is happening, but the widening of 16 will have those Michigan lefts, and wouldn't one go right around there? So why, if we put in a light, wouldn't it
Yeah.
possibly be torn out?
It would actually be the other side of Great
Oh,
Byram, the other
okay.
side. Not the hospital side, but the other one.
Okay.
I was just going to say, I know from, that's my commute home, and it's getting more and more impacted it just with standard commuting that's already existing here, not adding anything that's future scoped. That T intersection, there's a little bit of a rise, and you can't always quite see kind of who's coming at you from from Town Hall, going back up to that Great Byram intersection and that T intersection.
The foliage too.
The vegetation.
Yes, and the vegetation does play a factor. I know, I would agree, we're probably not there yet because there are some layers of improvements coming. But I would say I would like this to continue to be evaluated. I know that this intersection is impacted and it likely will face future impacts. And so having a signal option, I think would be the most reasonable solution in the future. But I also do agree, right now this might not be the optimal fall call to add that to the list.
Cool.
Great. Another item that we considered is the Howie Mine connection as a part of a non-highway category. This would be between North Providence Street and Deer Creek Drive. I'll note that if we did submit for this as a part of the CRTPO fall call, your match for that would be closer to 35 to 50%, which you already have this included as a part of your SS4A grant, which the announcement is coming this November, at 20%. So it's just a matter of, do we wait and see what we get from the SS4A award? Because if so, then you only have to do a 20% match.
I would wait. I mean, why would we pay 35% when we pay 20?
Yep.
Hopefully we get it, I think.
Some other things were improvements to the Waxhaw Marvin and Kensington intersection, in addition to the pedestrian improvements that are upcoming here. So the scope would be to add some dual left turn lanes to the intersection. The downside of this one is we only have a very, very preliminary design available right now, so more work is needed to fully progress that at this stage. So it may not score well if we submit that one.
If you think it's not going to score well, I would say, don't put all that work into it.
Yeah.
And then some other
Couple of
things.
years will score well. But right now, maybe not.
And then some other things were some eligible downtown connections as a part of the highway category. I think this one kind of falls in line with the last one. It would be a tough lift at this point for those projects just because due to limited design that's available.
And what
And-
is that design about? It's a highway category, so is it road improvements and,
Roadway improvements, so in particular, we're looking at NC 75, West North Main Street, West South Main Street, and East South Main Street in particular.
but the design isn't fully vetted, as you're saying?
Correct.
Yeah. I think it makes sense to focus on the top two you have and just let DOT know these are our top two priorities.
Well,
From the previous
I
slide,
don't
you
know.
mean, or?
Yeah, sorry, not this slide.
well, the
Yeah, these two.
Kensington one, I mean, that's a lot of money
Yeah,
to put in.
That would be.
Do you think it would be better just to shoot for the Parkway East?
yeah, I mean, the
I don't know
Parkway
that we
East
got
is a lower
1.7
spend.
laying around.
We certainly don't. I just know that that's something it's been clamored about so much too. I get frequent, yeah. every other week, it seems, someone's approaching me about sidewalks in Kensington and connecting that area. And I know we're working on the trails and the Carolina Thread Trail and the other trails in the area, but I mean, this time of year in particular, just the idea of a kid in Curitan trying to get to Nesbitt for baseball practice, it'd be nice if the kids could just get on their bike and go to practice and not have to get a ride from mom and dad.
I guess it wouldn't hurt to apply for it at least, right?
Exactly.
Well, what happens, so how does the application process work? Do we apply for both?
Well, let's talk about that, but also let's.
I have another question.
Yeah, let's talk about that, but understand you do not need to decide tonight.
Yes.
So I do want to emphasize that to the board. We're recommending some things. You may have things on the list that we've never thought about. There is a master transportation plan for the town. You might want to go through and peruse that, take a look at it, confirm your thinking, talk to the folks that you talk to. We will come back again and walk through the process and how it would work. But as to applying for one or two, I don't know. James?
So you can apply for as many as you want, essentially. The issue is you start to compete with your own projects. So
That's how I'm looking at this too.
So normally what we've done in the past, and you can always change what you want to do, is normally we just submit one project. And so that way we're not competing against ourselves.
Right.
But you could always, since these are two different categories, you can compete within those various categories. I will say that something that you could also explore is progressing design and right-of-way further. The reason why I mentioned that is because with the Kensington Drive multi-use path, you would really be applying for design, right-of-way, and construction. If you just applied for construction and you had design and right-of-way complete, you gain points based upon the scoring metrics that CRTPO has, which equates to a lesser local match, which equates to less money that you have to bring to the table.
Does that have, that local match, does it get less daunting as we talk about another topic later on in the evening about the financing?
No.
Okay.
Well, I would say this. It becomes different. The conversations changes a bit. Part of our recommendation in that is that we're doing a lot of work on roads we don't own. A lot of work on things that we do not own, which make it harder to figure out eligible financing in one sense. It pushes it into a cash position, which means you have to save for a long time for things, or it pushes you into bonds. And both are reasonable discussions to have, and I think that's what we're going to have later. I think as you go through this, this will be a good prep for later. Nothing's looking to be decided tonight. So I think that gives the board some time to breathe and review the information and pull this back in. It is getting to be time, however, that it's going to get real. You've got around $3.5 million between now and December on just 3 projects. And so, yes, it's coming to that point. So that discussion, I think, is valuable, and quite frankly, you could think about it in these. I mean, people may say, the folks who vote for you folks, or the folks in town, the citizens in town, the partners in town may say, those are worthy things of being part of what we might consider on a bond, or it might be the kind of thing we're willing to save up for, or how do we make those things happen and give you a good discussion about those kinds of things. So that's how I would say that.
Okay.
Okay?
I have another question, unrelated to this, but related to traffic. Is
Okay.
this a good time
Sure.
to ask that? Can you give me, as many of you may know, there's been an email sent out by Waxhaw Elementary, but really from the school district, not necessarily the school's decision, that they have removed the traffic person, and that they have changed the traffic pattern to make it right in, right out. And needless to say, It has not been received well by parents. And at first they thought it was a Waxhaw decision, but we don't have anything to do with that. It is a UCPS decision.
Sure.
How do we
Your timing
navigate
couldn't be
that?
better. I have something to hand out. Pass that around the board. Could you go to the next presentation, please?
Because I know that we have an officer in the morning at the Circle K already helping with the overflow because of school traffic. Is that correct?
No, not that one.
Just to make sure, are we complete on our last topic?
Yes, we'll come back to it. Yes.
Okay.
You're not making decisions on your last, we were at the very end.
Nope. That's why I
of
want
that.
to make sure we've covered that
Yes, sir.
topic.
Yep.
So
Yes, sir,
move
we
to the
have.
next. Perfect.
I'm going to turn this over to James now. We have been inundated, that's a nice word, with concern about this particular issue, and both public safety and traffic have gotten together to have a conversation about that. I'm going to turn it over to James.
So like Scott mentioned, and I'm actually going to invite up Chief Dex Wilson and Mike Mulligan to kind of talk through this a little bit more, but I'll tee it up for the chief. But yes, the short answer is, and I apologize in advance, this presentation was prepared in the last 30 minutes. So this was a quick turnaround for us, but we have been, like Scott has mentioned, inundated with requests, concerns about this. So I'll just start with saying, what we currently know. So Waxhaw was informed today that the Waxhaw Elementary School traffic pattern has changed to a ride-out only condition. We also know that Union County Public Schools made this decision. Town of Waxhaw and Waxhaw PD were not involved in this process. And UCPS released a statement today confirming the decision to remove the traffic directors, as you had mentioned, Mayor Pro Tem, from 13 schools, including Waxhaw Elementary. We also know that UCPS has stated their reasoning is budgetary, and they are confident, and these are in quotes, that UCPS is confident that these changes will not compromise student safety. And for staff, we disagree. We have several safety concerns. So I'll tee that up to Dex.
Just one thing. So they obviously have the authority to remove the traffic directors if they choose, but do they really have the authority to dictate right in and right out?
No. So the road is a NCDOT roadway.
Right.
So DOT has the ultimate authority to decide access control,
Yeah.
right in, right out when it comes to ingress, egress, those types of things. And we don't know, we simply don't know if UCPS has reached out to DOT. And in more particular, we don't know if UCPS has reached out to MSTA, which is a subdivision of that, which is the Municipal State Transportation Associates folks.
So those entities wouldn't necessarily grant them any authority to do this, right? It would
Correct.
come from DOT if there was to be a legitimate change like this.
Correct. So with these types of changes, in particular with schools, it has to go through the NCDOT and MSTA, and we simply don't know if the school system has reached out. If they had, they'll have a permit and approvals for that.
All right, so while we are concerned about the ride-in, the ride-out of Waxhaw Elementary, I think our biggest concern is the pedestrian traffic in that crosswalk. If there's not a traffic director at that intersection, then these are elementary age children that will be crossing that road, going to school and coming out of that school through that crosswalk. Another concern is rerouting the traffic to the intersection of NC 75 and Old Providence Road. We all know that's a bad intersection. DOT knows that's a bad intersection, and that's why they've agreed to do a roundabout, but that's not until 2028. So if this were 2028, then I'd say absolutely right turn out of that school would work. The roundabout will
Allow people to turn
A major
around.
hit.
it'll take that traffic and allow them to turn around and come back the other way. You'd still have the issue of the crosswalk, but the issue of the ride out wouldn't be a problem because the roundabout would allow them to make that proper turn back to go back down Old Providence Road. But as it stands now, I know how much traffic we had at last year's school year in that intersection. That's why we have an officer in that intersection every morning to control that traffic. So between 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock in the morning, there's somebody in that intersection from the PD to make sure cars can get out safely, because that is a very bad intersection for wrecks, and most of those are left turn wrecks and right angle wrecks, meaning it's a T-bone type wreck. So we put an officer out there to be proactive to keep that from happening. Now, if you have a right turn only out of the school, now that adds more traffic that's going to turn right, which means that traffic is going to back up. When that traffic backs up, it already backs up almost to the elementary school between them letting that traffic out. The only option would be to let traffic flow for up to 5 minutes at a time from Old Providence Road onto NC 75, which will not work. If we stick with what we currently do, which is 15 to 20 to 25 cars at a time, then that traffic will back up into the school, which will compound the problem at the school because kids won't be able to get dropped off in time. On top of it's going to back up traffic further down Old Providence Road trying to get into that school. So there's numerous areas of problems that we see. Another issue is if they turn left onto 75 to attempt to make a U-turn back onto Old Providence Road, that is not safe. The other option would be to funnel them down to McCain Street. They would turn on McCain, which takes them by another school as well as through a residential area to get back over to Arbor Drive to get back onto Old Providence Road. So there's just so many compounding issues. I don't know that they thought about this when they made this change. So
I mean, this particular intersection is particularly bad. So I could see making this change, saying, okay, this right in, right out, that's obvious, it'll make things better. But this particular location is just terrible. You're going from bad to worse. This is literally, out of the fire and into the frying pan type of thing when you pass the school and get up to 75. It's just terrible. And once you get past 75, even if you do a right turn, there's still no good place to make a U-turn, and you're going all the way to Western Union, another school.
I assume whoever made this decision has never been at pickup and drop off.
And to my knowledge, they did not contact the principal from Waxhaw Elementary. They did not contact the traffic directors that worked out there last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They contacted other jurisdictions that made changes similar to this and said they didn't have any issues, which that may be the case for other locations. Our location is different. And I believe they're going to find out a few other schools are different, but we're concerned about Waxhaw.
And, it's that one-size-fits-all approach that never works, right? Not in anything that I've done in my life has that ever worked. So it might be great for Unionville, where it's farms and, they have a very, very small population and their schools are not overcrowded, but here they are. And, sometimes there's 2 bus cycles for kids to get home. And so that's the reason a lot of parents drop their kids off. Plus the fact that having them on a bus stop at 6:15 in the morning to get to school for 45 minutes isn't a great idea for any kid, especially not a kindergartner to 5th grade. I mean, so.
We're talking about a crossing guard being eliminated, and they're really pushing the cost onto either the municipality or the county.
That's what it boils down to, I think.
And they're lacking courage of doing other things to make accommodations to keep that crossing guard.
Yeah.
This is downstream from that, but it's really them making poor decisions all along the way.
Now, the crosswalk that's there, that's not a signaled crosswalk, correct? It's just lines of the street.
Signal, the kids would just be hitting.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying at least, the argument could have been, well, they'll push the button and the light will go off, and you would hope people would stop, and they don't do that on Cuthbertson, so I'm sure they're not gonna do it there either. But it's not even signaled, so that's a bigger hazard.
You're correct. So the existing conditions do not include like an RRFB, which is a rectangular rapid flashing beacon, or any pedestrian refuge, signage, those advanced type of signalization type things.
And what's the speed limit on that road?
I think in the school zone is 35. 35 in the school zone.
But I think it's higher.
We
right
all know
before that.
folks don't necessarily
No,
follow the
yeah.
speed limit. Yeah.
Okay.
And back to the chief's point, you know, when people say right in, right out is safer, it generally is, except when you look at the conditions here. For folks to make that right turn exclusively, they would have to travel up to the intersection of NC 75 and Old Providence Road where the Circle K is, which is a problem intersection that is well documented. So what we're concerned about from an engineering standpoint is what happens when folks try to make that U-turn movement at that intersection. And we did compile some crash data for you as well. Oh, go ahead.
Excuse me for interrupting, but there's a point that I'd like to bring up that we haven't touched on. While they're closing the parents into a right in, right out movement, the next driveway cut is the buses. I didn't hear them restricting buses from turning left into the parents.
They did.
Or did they?
Everything's
Everything's right.
Everything's
Because
right
in
out.
that email, it did not say that the buses are also going to be forced to change routes. But with Waxhaw Elementary, a proportionate amount of those school attendees and the pupils attending Waxhaw Elementary are supported and reside in our county district, in our ex-urban area, back out towards JARS. So you're going to force all those families to then come back up and create a hazard of a U-turn situation with buses.
And that's if they can get out.
That's if
So
they can get out.
you've got other traffic on Old Providence Road coming toward Waxhaw that aren't going to the school. So once they get around those vehicles on the side of the road that are backed up waiting to get in the school, they're not going to stop. They're going to keep going. So
And I would also like to point out, there's regularly heavy equipment, semis, dump trucks that could traverse that. So not only is it a state road that is moving heavy equipment with kids, with buses, and now you can essentially have created a self-inflicted bottleneck through a unstudied pattern of movement by a school district that did not reach out to community partners for input.
all right.
So the data you're presenting here, what's the time span on this data?
So we usually do a 5-year crash history. So in particular, what we analyzed was the intersection of 75 and Old Providence, because for folks, they would have to make that right and go to that intersection. So looking at the existing conditions, within the past 5 years, which is your standard 5-year crash history report, there is documented suspected minor injuries. There is documented suspected serious injuries. No fatalities, thankfully, but severe collisions nonetheless. And of those collisions, majority of which are your angled collisions, so your left turn, right turn. So if this were to be the case and move forward, you're going to compound an already existing hazardous condition.
Do we have a grade on this intersection? I know we grade intersections and corridors.
I think it's failing. I
It
think
is
it's
a
a level
failing grade
service
already.
F. Yeah,
Got
it.
which is why the roundabout is programmed.
Which is why the roundabouts, exactly. So we're taking an F and we're making it even worse. And that's bad.
Getting the grades I got, F minus.
And now it's incomplete, because the people who are forced to go north are not going to be able to get back to south.
So then I have another question. How do we address this?
Yeah, that's where I was going to go to. What's our next play?
Well, the last slide here says Waxhaw will schedule a meeting with UCPS, Waxhaw PD, Waxhaw Engineering, NCDOT, MTSA, et cetera, to coordinate solutions. So
I'll be there.
That should be easy to do, to coordinate all those.
Well, we recommend that the request to schedule the meeting come from the chief's office. We think that carries weight. and then anybody else who wants to be in that. But definitely staff to staff, we want to at least make sure that we're sitting at the table so we can give them this. But we were going to do that. However, Mr. Mayor, if you want to make the call, that'd be fine as well. But
No, I think it'd be good to come from the chief of police along with this crash data from our traffic engineers, and a reminder that this intersection already has an F grade and is slated for a roundabout. I think one of the things to add, if there was a roundabout there today, you would have cross-street traffic that you're literally doubling. So you're doubling going north, and then you're going to make a U-turn, and then you're coming south. So you have twice as many car passes on an intersection, or a crosswalk, if you will, than you would normally.
That's
another thing
correct,
that-
and that's really the conclusion that we've come to, is if the roundabout were in place, this really wouldn't be as high of a concern with it not being in place. So
Exactly.
with the current proposal, it's just a safety concern for us.
And I don't think having a volunteer who's never directed traffic is a solution. Am I on the right path with that?
Yeah, that's what,
Not a-
they're
Yeah,
forcing you to make
you're
the
absolutely right. So
volunteer position.
we do have a school resource officer at that school. The problem with that is school resource officers are responsible for the children's safety at the school, in the school. So when kids are being dropped off, where do they need to be? At the front of the school, not out directing traffic. Same thing in the afternoon. I know I've seen numerous posts saying, well, why can't they just do that? It's not that easy.
Worse
If
than
something
that.
were to occur, then that officer's out on the road. We also looked at, is it feasible to bring in other officers that were off, because we don't have the manpower to man it with, we already have one out in an intersection. The other's normally over near Kensington, making sure traffic's flowing there. And then we have a sergeant. That would put nobody available for calls if we put another officer in that intersection. So the only option would be call somebody in who's off, or call in reserve officers to do that job. And it just costs a lot of money.
Well, that would be something UCPS would have to hire for off-duty, no?
They're not willing to do that. They think this is the safest, best option.
It's kind
Well,
of a
I
cop-out.
just hope that they
More than
don't
anything.
ask a parent to do it,
Yeah.
because that could cause a big.
I don't think that would happen. In their letter, it states that they're going to try this for a couple of weeks and monitor. I don't think it's going to take a couple of weeks. I think it's going to take 2 days,
Yeah.
and there's going to be outrage.
Okay.
I mean, you guys know we're all for wise spending, but, you know, UCPS's budget is somewhere in the region of 630 million. How much money are they saving by cutting these 13 traffic directors? You know, tiny, tiny drop in the bucket that doesn't make sense, in my opinion.
we're going to craft a letter for Dex
Okay.
and the mayor's signature. I think it ought to have a dual. I think that would be impactful. And plus, we'll continue with our connections to make phone calls and try to set something up. Does that sound like a
Yeah.
good direction from the
And
board?
again, I think the letter should highlight the crash data. It should highlight the current grade
Okay.
of that intersection we're going to pump everybody to, and how this would just make it even worse. Even if it did have a roundabout, it would just make things worse.
James, can we ask them for supportive documentation that made them come to this conclusion? And can we also say, how did you get to this determination?
It's a very reasonable question.
What study did you do? Did you do an origin and destination study to help facilitate this decision?
I would say it's all public information. So if the information exists, they should be able to provide it with a simple FOIA request.
Thank you.
I would assume that there'd be some parents that show up to a school board meeting to voice their concerns. I would assume that would be the case.
Well, I'm sure if North Carolina DOT was not contacted, that would be an issue.
Yeah.
So that may solve it right there.
Exactly.
But if you know people on the school board or in the Union County Public Schools, maybe reach out to them and let them know how dissatisfied you are.
Sounds good.
Thank you for everybody, Chief and James and Scott, for, I know this letter just came out of Waxhaw Elementary, and you guys were, like James indicated, working on putting together this presentation quickly and thoroughly for us so we could be abreast of what's going on and what actions are available for us to take to support Waxhaw Elementary and its parents that are traveling there daily. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, James.
So we have item 4 now?
Yes, we do. But just to circle back to 2, so you folks know, please give that a good review on the CRTPO projects. Please look at the master transportation plan we have. Just peruse it, make sure you're comfortable with where these things are coming from. So I just want to make sure the board knows it has the resources, and if you need further information, please let us know, and we'll be happy to help you. You're not making a decision even at the 11th. It'll be another work session agenda for you on the last meeting in August. Does that sound fair?
Sounds good.
Okay. And on to 4, I'm going to bring Janet up, and then this is a pretty simple one, and Barb is going to help me as well, and that is we have a request, and staff agrees with declaring the intent to abandon a portion of right-of-way off of Prescot, Glen. Now that the roundabout has been placed there, and the development needs to move forward, the necessary easements are in place for water and sewer and some other things, but we don't need the right-of-way, and the right-of-way really inhibits the project that goes in, and then the addition off of that circle into that area, so it makes the circle function. Well, so in what you have in front of you tonight is simply, if you adopt the proposed resolution, it declares your intent to consider that abandonment. Then the clerk's office, Barbie and team, will then take it from there, and they'll advertise and do all the things you do. You hold a future public hearing, you go through all your motions, and then you work your way through. This is just to get that piece started. It is recommended by both engineering staff and planning staff that you move forward that. Have I missed anything?
I think so.
Okay. Do you folks have any questions on that? This is fairly administrative right now. You will hold a public hearing, so you'll get more information, and you'll have further debate on this as well. But we do recommend that you move forward with this.
No, this makes perfect sense.
And that is an actionable item tonight. Barbie?
Yes. And just keep in mind that the notice will be in the paper for 4 consecutive weeks before you hold that public hearing, which will be, the public hearing will be showing on the September 8th meeting for you to do that part of it.
So do we want to vote on resolution RES 2026-017?
I just wanted to ask real quick if there's an opinion on what the likely future use of that land will be after this goes through.
I can answer. It really would not be useful because the roundabout is there and the design going in makes it not usable. We do have to reserve the right-of-way for, the easements for water and sewer, though.
Oh, okay.
That's all we have to do. It doesn't need a right-of-way, it needs an easement, and that's it.
Is that a sign?
Someone moving furniture?
Hurry up, or we're going to have to wait it out.
Exactly. Alrighty then, could I get a motion to adopt resolution 2026-017?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Hearing none, this motion carries. Simple enough. Alrighty, discussion on the potential data centers in Waxhaw. Wow, this is a hot topic, come to roost in little old Waxhaw.
Little old Waxhaw. We actually have a presentation. I'm going to turn it over
Did we?
to our
Okay.
senior staff member, Janet, and our attorney is here as well, so they're going to guide you through this conversation.
And I'll just add, just as we kick this off, what would be helpful is where we stand at the state level, because I know the Assembly had some items regarding data centers as well. So where they're at would be good to know as well.
Okay. I can answer that question first. There was House Bill 1189, which is suggesting a 2-year moratorium beginning August 1st, 2026 through August 1st, 2028. It's the Data Center Transparency Act. It's been referred to the House Committee on Rules, Calendar, and Operations back in May, and it's kind of at a standstill there.
Okay.
So we don't,
So it's in rules,
yes.
where it could spend who knows how long.
And I'll go through this quickly because it was in your packet, so I'm sure you've already seen it. So just, this came up because data centers are a rapidly growing land use here in North Carolina, and there are a lot of considerations around them: noise and heat, lighting, utility, water and electric capacity. Our regulatory landscape, locally there are 5 jurisdictions that have adopted data center ordinances. There are 23 that have temporary moratoriums, the most recent being Charlotte just about a month ago. And then those moratoriums range from 60 days up to 32 months. Options for your consideration: do nothing, which is not what I would suggest. Adopt a moratorium or adopt an ordinance amendment. The ordinance amendment, I think, will take some time, so a moratorium may be the route to follow. There are a lot of considerations, like I said, noise and heat and utilities, so there's a lot to consider as we put together an ordinance around these. How Waxhaw compares today: we do have a server farm allowable use in the EC zoning district, but no real guidelines around that. Things to consider as we go through this is: what type of approval process would you like to use? Okay. And then separations, buffering, and screening that would be required. Again, noise, light, height, what happens at decommissioning. Once activity ceases there, how long do we allow that before we consider it decommissioned? And then, again, utilities, water, sewer, electric capacity requirements. These are all considerations that would have to go into an ordinance. If you pursue the ordinance amendment, we would want to define what data centers are. Do we want to allow them in EC zoning districts? Do we consider some other zoning district for them? And then the different approval processes that are options. Considerations: minimum parcel sizes, separation and buffering, again, noise, heat, and lighting, utilities, decommissioning. So all things to consider. So tonight we're here to just help with some discussion, determine what direction you would like to go, and then if you choose the moratorium, then we have some time to put together a draft ordinance to bring back to you. So,
When we
with
say
that-
an ordinance, about how long do you think it would take to draft an ordinance?
Well, we do have some good examples, but again, there is a lot to consider, so I would say it would take several months.
Okay.
Sometimes it's unknown too, with something like this, it could take a while to really mull it over, and it seems totally reasonable to me to have a moratorium in place while we do that and give ourselves some time.
Yes, I would agree with that.
I think the longer the better. I mean, I think a year, if we can do that, that would be great. There's just so many things to consider, and we don't want to rush, write something up, and then leave ourselves open up for something we don't want, and that wouldn't be good for Waxhaw. So if we can get that done, I think that would be great.
I agree with the moratorium. There's a lot of new information still flowing out actively as data centers are growing in headlines across multiple states, even within this state. I believe data centers are still, actively pursuing Greensboro area or other Winston-Salem corridor. But for me, for Waxhaw, I think the moratorium is the best course of action now, while one, we evaluate what actions we can take, and then it gives us time to see what other ordinances and to do other studies to see what has been effective in supporting residents as data centers, or even maybe even classically server farms. What they were has morphed. It used to be just a small warehouse with backup generators. Now these
Diesel.
server farms are
Running on diesel.
scaling in something completely different in their own direction, and so giving us time through the moratorium lets us be mindful in how we structure it.
The meta server farm, there's a meta server farm in Santa Clara County, California, and it has a substation adjacent to it.
Mm-hmm.
So these things are consuming enough electricity to require a substation, which is a phenomenal amount of electricity. So I don't know what Duke and Union provide, but Duke's definitely not up for the challenge for that.
And I think, Charlotte did this in about a month. So between putting the letters out, and I think Matt can help us out in how we structure this.
They did the moratorium, you mean? Yeah.
Yes. There's a lot of unknown effects like air quality, health hazards, the water stress and agricultural issues they're having. And then the decibel rate is,
The decibel is
Is-
another one, yeah.
it's like having a hairdryer next to your head.
So the buffering requirements would be needed. I
They're
mean,
significant.
if we're going to talk about allowing these and not just banning them outright, but if we're going to
Yeah.
allow them in our LDC, then the buffering requirements are going to be
Correct.
substantial.
Union County has a draft ordinance now, and they're requiring noise studies. So what's the noise level like before?
Yeah.
What's the noise level after? And I think that's something that we would probably consider including in
But
ours.
that's what I'm saying. That will all take time. To
Yes.
Right.
Work
Mhm.
sessions and your
Yeah.
research and Matt's research and whatever else we can come up
Rich's
with.
research.
Rich's research.
Get to work, Rich.
But if we can get this going and, get these letters out and get it done as soon as possible, that would be great.
Right, so to do a moratorium that's over 60 days, and correct me if I'm wrong, we need to just send out 2 public notices. So we would have to have a notice in the newspaper, I get this week and then next week. And then you could probably hear about a moratorium at your next meeting. Is that correct? And what dates do we do public notices? Just
Can the moratorium last a year or two, or are we
So-
bound by 60
So
days?
so just purely procedural. If you're going to choose to do a moratorium 61 days or longer, then you are required to put a notice in general circulation for 2 consecutive weeks,
Yep.
no less than 10 days before the hearing, no more than 25 days before the hearing,
Yep.
which should, I think, be able to align us to have it ready for August 11th's meeting.
Okay. No?
Maybe close.
I don't think so. That's not 10 days.
Ten calendar days.
Yeah, we could get it out, but it's going to be. Yeah, I could do that, but I don't know if that's. Yeah, we can do the notice. I'm not sure if it's going to meet the 25 days.
It doesn't so you have to
Doesn't
have
have
it
to.
10 days.
So
at
I have
least
10
days.
yes.
Not farther out than 25 days.
Right.
So if you get it 10 days in advance of that hearing date, we're good.
Yeah,
2 consecutive weeks where you've put the first one out at least 10 days before.
So we need one this week and one next week.
yeah, so we'll need to draft it, but we'll have to get it to them early tomorrow in order for it to be put in the paper for Thursday, because the Charlotte Observer does not publish but on certain days. So we have to stay within that that timeframe there.
So we'll work as quickly as we can, I think is what you're hearing me say,
Understood, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
August
Yeah.
11th
Have all
is
of
what
our
we'll,
help.
we control what we can control,
exactly.
try to get it done.
If we could get it done by August 11th, that would be great.
Right, so that's what our aim will be, to be able to set up that hearing. At the hearing, you would hear and consider some of the criteria. There are 4 criteria you have to meet for a moratorium. This is pursuant to state statute. You have to basically put a statement out of what the problems and conditions are that you're looking to solve by having the moratorium in place, and why alternative courses of action were not adequate to do it, right? All the research, all the time, all the iterative process going through the ordinance adoption procedures of the town. You'd have to put out a statement in that moratorium of what exactly you are making subject to the moratorium, which here is the approval of a data center, how you define it, and what would be captured under that sort of development. You would need to put a date for the moratorium to terminate, and you'd also need to put a statement setting forth why the duration is reasonably necessary to address those issues, why the moratorium needs to be the length that you're choosing. And then finally, a statement of what the actions that you expect to do and a schedule for those actions that you'll be doing during the moratorium. And we can work with you to help kind of put that together, put up a draft, make sure we capture what the board has in its mind. The other thing I would note, however long you put your duration in place for, you can have a renewal or an extension. To do so, you need to be able to state new facts or issues that have come up that warrant that extension at that time, and you'd have to go through the hearing process again. Okay, kind of looking down the road a little bit on that, but just keep that in mind. So it is reasonable to put forth sufficient time to adequately allow for the research and the process to play out, to be well-informed and intentional with the ordinance that you're looking to draft, making sure that we're capturing these criteria that we're required to capture.
So we should probably make the initial period as maybe even longer than we think we need, just so we have some cushion.
Yeah, so Charlotte did 150 days. Another one that's recently occurred is Kings Mountain. They did 182 days, 6 months. And they're about to extend theirs as a result of work that they went through and the process that they've gone through. And others, the presentation had a lot of them cited that you could reference. And so, yeah, I do think that, like all things here, let's be very intentional about how we're going about doing what we want to do.
I mean, I would say at least a year.
Yeah. And then I guess to alleviate my concern, really, we don't have anyone knocking on our door trying to build a server farm right now.
No, we have had no applications, no discussions.
Okay.
Oh,
I just
sorry.
want to make sure everyone's clear on that, because that's.
No, we have not had any applications or discussions.
And this is something that it's kind of a hot button issue, just in the ether, as it were, and we know the state's working on something. We know other municipalities have worked on it, so we're just doing our due diligence to make sure we're ahead of the curve and not
Yes.
behind the 8 ball on anything.
And I just wanted to throw something out there as food for thought. As we work on amending or creating an ordinance, amending an ordinance, while the moratorium's in place, one of the justifications that these data center developers give is, well, it's going to bring jobs, and but then sometimes the companies that bring these jobs can be a bit transitory, and maybe they go away and then the jobs go away as well. Would we be allowed to require any data center developer to put money up in a bond so that any purported jobs and salaries would be secured by that, regardless of what happened to the company?
I know that when Charlotte just went through their moratorium, some of the research that they found was that the jobs that are created are typically the construction jobs, and that once the facility is up and running, it's really only 20 to 50 new jobs per data center. So legally, are we allowed to require that?
I think that's certainly one of the things that we want to review and analyze as part of any ordinance that you might want to consider.
I didn't even
I don't
know
have an
if it-
answer here off the
Yeah,
fly on
I mean,
that.
I didn't
but
even
yeah,
know if
something
it
to
was like
consider.
within the realm of possibility, so.
Okay.
One question I have for the board.
Yes.
And this is supporting the clerk's office in what we do. We put this out, your rules of procedure. I just want to make sure that the board is intentional with us. And that is, if you hold a public hearing, your general rule is that you then wait for action. So if you want this quickly, you need to say your intention is for this to move despite that. If that's what you want, if that's what the board wants. I'm just trying to say that because your rules of procedure are something somebody would look for. So once we do this, we're out loud doing this. And there are people who advocate for data centers who are going to pay attention to your advocacy out loud. So I want to make sure we're dotting I's and crossing T's, and that's just one more procedural thing. Barbie, did I get that about right?
Yes.
So I would say it's a hot button issue, but not one that I don't think we would have support from residents, from what I hear.
Right, I don't think, we're not going to change our position on that at this time.
So, and we're not stopping them forever. We need time to do research. So I think that if the board is okay with taking action on something like this, then when do you need to know? You need to know now?
I mean, I'll say now that I'm in favor of.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for Barbie, but I do think we want direction tonight. If you want
Yeah.
this to proceed towards
I think
publishing notice to be ready for a hearing, we want
Yeah.
that tonight.
It sounds
We're
like
not
that's the
taking a
voice of the board.
stance on data centers. We're looking to
Correct.
do our due diligence, and that this year will help us.
Then I would suggest that you make a motion to allow for that to happen at August the 11th, for you to
Action.
make that action after the public hearing, because that is not written in your rules, and you have expressed that you did not want to vary from that decision, that you wanted to be consistent across the board. So if you are going to make that action after the public hearing, then I think it would be beneficial if you would put that in a motion.
All right, let's do it.
You want that in a motion this evening then? So the motion specifically states that we will vote on the data center.
So the motion would just basically state that the board is directing the clerk to draft a motion for you to approve the moratorium after the public hearing.
Okay. Well, I'll make a
Take
motion
action.
to direct the clerk to, that we will approve the moratorium after the public hearing.
Motion's been proposed. Any questions or comments on said motion? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Alrighty, so next up we have consider the adoption of a proposed resolution authorizing the installment financing for the police fleet vehicles.
Come on up, Rosie.
Come on, Rose.
Come on, Rosie.
We don't see you anymore. I know.
Okay, so what we want to do, at least tonight, is give some background to the resolution, and then answer two very specific questions about what the resolution does itself, okay? So on our fleet replacement strategy, when we adopted the budget, you may or may not have noticed that I said a couple of times that I felt that on capital outlay, or those types of rolling stock, that I would prefer to do smaller financial placements so as to keep our capacity open, be able to replace and put it on more of a standard fleet maintenance replacement program, so that we're replacing before things go so low in value, especially on rolling stock and some stock. If you buy an F-350, you're going to keep it for a long time. It has a different depreciation rate. It has a different schedule. If you buy a JCB backhoe or something like that, they have longer replacement schedules. But some things replace more in the 3 to 5 year ratios. So you want to match your financing to it. Secondly, as we'll talk about in the second part of our discussion this evening, I want to make sure that we are preserving cash, so against our CIP strategies. So I want to go through this a little bit. Want to make sure, and this specifically has to deal with police fleet at this point in time. We're both adding officers and replacing vehicles at the same time, so we're doing both. We're coming off of a lease agreement that we had with Enterprise that we were not happy with. Now that's a classic fleet lease. This terminology that we're going to use tonight is installment financing. It's also called lease purchase agreements, but you gain title to this right up front, okay? That's the difference in this. So I think the end attorney language, Matt usually says that we owe them $1 on the very last day of the agreement or something like that. But
It's a forklift agreement.
Yeah.
It's a lease, and then you have $1 fixed amount buyout.
A fixed amount buyout of $1. That's right. So we have want to make sure that we have fleet readiness, fiscal discipline. We want to strictly impose ourselves within these guidelines of this amount of money so that it's predictable moving forward. And I think when you see the second part of the discussion, you know why I want a lot of predictability in my math moving forward. And I think the board should want that as well. And then the real decision comes down to, if you ask a banker that advice against that operational rolling debt strategy, it's called the banker manager paradox. They're usually looking at the nominal interest rate. I am too, but the carrying cost of money is low enough if the terms are decent enough that this kind of thing keeps us within a dollar figure. And the dollar figure is more important to me from, we're a fixed finance group. You know, we have fixed cost. We don't have a lot of variable costing in our structure. So we employ people to patrol streets, to set parks, to do things, to be a clerk, you know, all the things that we do, we're mostly fixed cost. So I need steadiness in understanding how my numbers move forward, and so does the board. So the procurement request would be, in this particular case, for about 7 vehicles, totaling about $421. Now, believe it or not, these are really, really good prices. These are all off state contract. So this is all pre-procurement spread on these things. And we have been going back to state contract now since we were dissatisfied with the lease. It just wasn't working for us. So the type of arrangement we're looking at is a 3-year term. Right now, we have one group that the lowest quote we have actually is 4.7. I'm showing you 4.9 just to let you know of where that is. This is the way it structures out over that time. You can see here that if you go to semi-annual or monthly payments, your interest or carrying cost of money goes down. We would choose the one that goes down the most and is the easiest one. If we had a fleet of 500, 600, 700, we would go semi-annual most likely, but we don't. So you save about $9,300 in this particular arrangement. We've asked 3 banks. We have 3 answers back. The lowest is 4.7 right now. It takes away budget spikes, which is one thing I want to do in my arrangement of how we do our accounting. We've tried to put out a modest inflation factor, and see what that 5-year cash purchase requirement would be. So it puts us within that. If we just did cash, and that's where I don't want to get. And I don't want to deplete the liquid general fund reserves that could otherwise leverage other things that we have. So that's the opportunity cost. That's the problem with cash, if you just pay for cash. Now, I get it, I understand it, but we're not buying a washer and dryer. Since you like to do these things. Plus, a newer car is easier to maintain. We're doing tires, we're doing oil changes, we're doing basic maintenance as opposed to replacing radiators and everything else.
So after 5 years, it's considered a salvage title?
Yeah, and then what we know, after 3 years, it's our title. We get title at the beginning under this financing arrangement.
Reading the resale at the end of it, so, but the idea is the goal to keep the vehicle then for 5 or for 3 years?
We would like to keep them for 5. We do think that there's value past that, but we'll do some initial analysis. Our recommendation is 3, but it could be 5. If I can get 5 and I can still get within about 20,000 of that 105, I think that's probably a good deal on that.
Yeah.
You're depreciating the most in the first year. The minute you drive it off the lot, it depreciates, what, 13? And then after that, you're rolling down pretty hard for the first 2 to 3 years. After that, your depreciation is.
And the bulk of the maintenance we're doing internally, correct?
We are, except if it's warranty work.
Correct.
So we're sending out for warranty because some of that's cheaper. We've been dealing with a lease arrangement with Enterprise that we have not been happy with, and I think some of the expectations we had out of maintenance of those are just not being met right now, so from Enterprise's perspective. But I think that's just the way the contract was written. So we think we can stretch them to 5. We think that's a better move, but we'll run the math. But right now, we've got it rolling at 3.
And how is this impacted as we bring new cars online? So the goal here is to develop a strategy where your annual costs, like you say, are very predictable and very stable. But as we're rolling new cars online, how is that sort of factored in then? Does that still see this steady increase, or?
No, what we're trying to do is keep the amount that we're spending per year at a certain level. And if we do it on 3, we won't come back for 3. So we'll start, we're trying to space them out into a cycle moving forward. We'll really know if we're successful after 2.
2 years?
If that makes, after 2 cycles.
2 cycles?
Yeah, 2 cycles. So 2 3-year cycles.
Yeah.
We'll have better data to come back and look at that. But it has been my experience that these ways of doing this are much better against the depreciation schedules and that predictability. And the resale is really what you want to be able to do as well. So that resale really helps you because then you're putting money back into the 500. So you're creating that cycle out. Like I said, if we were much larger, we would probably be doing this on 1-year cycles with 5-year lives. It depends on the life of the depreciation schedule per piece of equipment. But we're pretty simple here. We're not replacing a lot of things, so we're fairly in good shape. Where we wear things out the most is in police, because they drive the most miles. They just do. They're driving miles. We're in a suburban setting, and they put the miles on the cars. Yes,
how
sir.
does this? Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
So we're looking at it's a 4.7 interest rate, 3-year term, and we're looking for a 5-year keep on the asset. Is that what we're looking at?
That's what we're doing.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And how does this impact our annual outlay from a budgetary standpoint compared to what we were doing with the Enterprise deal?
It's more, but it is also less complicated under this, and we were not getting the payback. The cycle was also longer. I think the lease arrangement was 5 years. 5 years, as opposed to 3. So it was really costing us more in their add-on fees. Yes. That's really where they were dinging us. This is very straight. We get title right away. We're managing. We own the asset.
No add-on fees.
Yeah, no add-on fees, nothing like that, so we're saving in there.
Okay.
Also, overall, you're saving because
We
of
are.
the maintenance.
Yeah, that's where you get the bigger savings. Yep, and then on resale, because you haven't let it depreciate as much. You know, in some cases, folks, we've kept them for 8. That's our normal right now. They really begin to become maintenance issues after 5 is really when they start to become maintenance issues. And I'm not talking standard like brakes and things like that. They become more complicated issues after that.
Transmission.
Power plants.
Yeah, all that other kind of stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
yep. So it's got a positive return for us. It's a controllable number. It allows us some capacity in that number, that 500,000.
About the growth. And
It allows us some capacity in there to then, if something comes up, we have the ability to deal with it in that number better than what we're doing now. So that 500 becomes a control line over time.
Okay.
Which is what I'd like to have. That kind of predictability allows us to better plan on the fleet maintenance side.
Sounds good.
So the statutory and procurement compliance, I see Matt is still sitting behind me. So we have a bidding exemption. This is a bank qualified status of, it enables a below market rate. So that's why we get a better rate. The collateral is only the vehicles. So they have a priority lien to the lender on the vehicles. If they don't like us, they can come back and take them. I don't think they'll do that, but you know what I'm saying. So we have that. We do not have to go to the LGC. This is the South, folks. If this was a Baptist church on Wednesday night, it'd be all God's people said amen. So it just doesn't require that because the statute already allows you to do this. 168-20 protects the future boards from, it protects them from long-term liabilities. It keeps it at a short note. It allows them to give us a below market rate. You know, 49, 47 is below market. Anyone who's gone out to buy a car lately knows that those are better, much better numbers than they would be. And
What triggers the bidding exemption?
we're buying them off state contract.
Off a state contract?
Yeah, we're
already?
buying them off the state contract. We're allowed to bid, we're allowed to go and buy off the state contract. The people who participate in that, which are dealers, believe it or
Yeah.
not, across the state, they've bid and said, we'll sell them at X, Y, and Z.
So
So
a preset price already?
preset prices and those kinds of things. I think they change yearly, but yes, they're allowed to do those. We don't have to go through the formal bidding process, and that saves time and money as well. So all of this is under state statute for us to do this. So what would happen is you would authorize a resolution of intent, and it does 2 things in this. It says that if any spending happens before the contract, Matt, help me here as I go through this section, but before a contract is signed. In other words, they're going off the lot. You got to get them tomorrow. If you pass this, we're allowed to reimburse ourselves. Okay, so we have a reimbursement section in this resolution. Barbie made sure of that, made sure it was in there. And it allows us to then negotiate with the 3 bidders and get the best rate. And then we do a 3-year term. That's what you're telling us we can do. And it allows us, because of the state term contract, we can move on them quickly. You're not, the other thing that you're not doing is you do not have to sign an appropriation clause in your contract documents, which means you have to. That's a weird thing to say to y'all. We're going to always pay our bills. We do that. But you don't have that appropriation clause like you would on the building, for example. You might have, this is an installment financing, so you may not have had that. But if you go GO bonds, then at that point you're appropriating. You're guaranteeing that you're going to appropriate. So it gets you out of that little wiggle form. But the fact of the matter is you still have to pay it because they can still come back and take it. So does that make sense? Yeah. They agree to just, they'll give us title, but they have the right to take it if they want to. Did I miss anything on that, Rosie? Now, I will tell you that banks have moved away from this. It's taken us quite a bit to get our bids in. We're having some conversations with the banks about why that is and why they don't like to play in this area. I think this is a good cash flow area for us because it really does control things for us very well and gives us more space to maneuver and do things in case things happen. So that's really what Rosie and I want. Predictability, the ability to do this, get these things done, and create a cycle on our asset management policy. So that's what you would be doing, and then we'll go out for, we'll negotiate all those and get all those done, and then we're going to, we recommend the monthly or the semi-annual, depending on which rate's better. And the banks right now, we have 4.7. We're asking them for monthly, which means that they should drop that. Hopefully, if they don't and it's 4.7, then we'll go yearly with them. But 4.7 is better than 4.9. So that's where we're at. Do we have any questions? Rosie knows more than I do, so ask her.
You need us to take action tonight?
Yes, it's actually on your agenda that you can adopt this resolution, and then we can move forward with that. It won't be done tomorrow, but it'll help us get that process moving.
Yeah, I think this really makes sense, and if we can save money on doing it monthly, by doing the monthly interest payments, that would be great. I just love to see this kind of thing, to be honest. I really appreciate you, Mr. Manager, and staff who worked on this. This brings value to the residents, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Brings value to the organization, to the department, too.
Yeah.
Gets them in safe vehicles. That's what we want.
Also, it's not exhausting your cash position as well.
Yeah, we're going to
Makes a
talk
lot of
about that
sense.
next.
Yep. All right, right forward.
Can we answer any further questions on this?
I had one, but it left.
Oh.
Can't remember where it went. Oh, I noticed the list of vehicles you had there. Are we switching from the Fords to the Chevys? And I saw a Mustang on the list. So,
It's a combination.
Mike?
There's two Fords.
Yeah, let's go back to that list for you.
There's two Fords in the rest are Chevy.
Yeah, there's two Fords in traffic enforcement, and then administratively, then you go Chevy Silverado, then there's a Tahoe administrative, and then 4 in patrol. Yeah.
4 patrol, 2 admin, and the 4 patrol, 2 admin, and the 2 traffic vehicles.
and are we seeing the Mustang being a $95,000 vehicle? Are we seeing that necessary over the $60,000?
That's
for
2. That's for 2.
That's for 2.
We're not getting,
Okay,
we're
so
not
we're
getting
only
the GT.
45.
Well, we're moving from
And no one's gonna be paying
Explorers
attention
to
the Mustang
Tahoes.
on the side of the
And the Durangos, we do have Durangos right now, but the resale value is the biggest sell for the
Problem
Tahoes.
with- yeah.
We'll get a lot more money back on resale
As opposed to the Fords.
for the Fords or the Durangos.
Okay,
The Durangos especially.
gotcha.
And a Mustang's gonna blend in.
Oh,
A
you
Mustang's
blend.
gonna blend into the environment.
I don't know, I think the Tahoe might blend in sometimes more.
Allow them to sneak around and
I don't know. I've been suspicious of
blend in on
Explorers.
Kensington, I know that. That's all.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, it does. The 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I missed that.
You saw it.
Sorry. Saw
That's
the
okay.
95 and went, what the? But the 2, that makes a little more sense.
That's a Dare Mustang.
It flies.
And actually, that bottom amount is 8, but the number doesn't change from 421,000. That number is correct.
So my question is with this cycling of rolling stock, do we have a future rolling stock outlay that, because we have Durangos and Fords and a mixed bag of vehicles, is there something that we would be expecting sooner than a 3-year cycle off of this round?
Not off of this round.
Okay.
We're coming out of, again, that lease arrangement with Enterprise. That's got one more year left on payment. Those have been structured for a little bit longer, so the next round will come in two fiscal cycles. Yeah.
Okay.
But next year, we could have others. So what I'm trying to do is create a role in the police department so that we constantly roll as we move forward.
So we've been buying, as those leases expire, we've been buying those vehicles at the minimal rates, well, anywhere between, $5,000 and $6,000 a piece. And so now those vehicles are 5 and 6 years old. So that's why we need to really go through and start the replacement. And we have all those vehicles, mostly police, but there's also public service and Parks and Rec, and even the administrative vehicles we have here for the office. So those are receive less use. Ours do, but we still have the value, and this makes it a better plan because so many of the vehicles are older now.
How much of our rolling stock is tied in with the enterprise lease programming?
All of it up to, a pretty good amount.
Pretty much almost all the vehicles
Yeah.
that we currently own
Almost all. Okay.
rolled through and came off of leases with Enterprise because the leases started, I think they actually started about 6 years ago, or maybe even 7 right before I came here. They had that lease going, and there were Parks and Rec vehicles, public services, and we've just been buying them off. So they're all well used.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, we'll also do an analysis. I mean, an F-350, certain things we'll keep for a longer time. So we do have cycle analysis on that, vehicle replacement analysis on some of those things. I mean, some of these trucks, for example, we can keep for a long time. So an administrative car out in the parking lot can go 8, can go 10, those kinds of things. But again, this is our first use of this. So enterprise probably wasn't a horrible thing to think about at the beginning, depending on cash flow. I've used them in other places. They worked well, but the buyout at the end and the fees have been not, they just don't work for us. So.
Correct. And actually with with some of the legislative changes they made with the local government commission, in the first year of all these leases, they're double counted.
Yeah.
Because we're paying $250,000 a year, and then we also had to account for it because it's a lease. They're counting it as revenue, and then on a deferred plan. So it was costing us $500,000 the first year for every time. And so this was also, 5 years of putting new vehicles on leases. And so now we're getting to where they're rolling off. So.
Lots of reasons to go this way. If we had a different kind of fleet, if we had a larger fleet, or we had, again, different uses of fleet, we may consider other options. This is a more traditional financing option in North Carolina. It's allowed by statute. The banks have not used them as much anymore, but I like them. I do like them because I think there's a better control. They're less expensive to deal with. So it gives us more predictability in that. So we'd recommend that you enter into the resolution as a staff. Mike, would you agree with that as well?
Yes, sir.
Very well then, can I get a motion to adopt resolution 2026-018?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, this motion carries. Resolution's adopted.
Thanks, Rosie.
Thanks, Rosie.
Thank you, Rosie.
Thank you.
Well, you can go if you want, but
Only if
gosh,
you want.
only if you want.
But this is going to be the most exciting part.
So the last item we have here before we look ahead is a discussion about supporting the WAA and our Little League team headed to the World Series
We got back up
with,
to
Well, hold on.
number 7.
Oh,
Still got an hour
I
left to
jumped
go.
ahead. That's on the notes. No wonder why I didn't know which resolution it was.
Enough time to spend together.
All right, number
tonight.
7, capital costs. I got the glaze to put on my eyes, so shoot.
Okay. So this is not for decision processing. This is for information tonight. It's a lot of it. But essentially, it comes out of a very natural concern about how over the next 5 years, what happens to our cash balances, which are important to us, both by law and by operating procedure. Our cash position allows us a flexibility that to operate efficiently and effectively and get things done for you folks, for the citizens here in town. But then the third piece is what happens to both our cash position and your tax rate as we go through capitalized issues. So I'm going to take you through this. This is high level right now, but this has been on the basis of we have been trying to create a financial scenario where the board could see what the different options are. A lot of what we are funding, we don't own. It's a very large number. Ask Rosie, I woke up from the budget hearing and went, oh my God, that's a lot of money. Because the drawdown of cash, while it sounds good at first, has an effect. Right now, we budget $500,000, but the reality is in this budget, we've made about $1 million in investment earnings, which represents about almost 2 cents. So you already have a cushion built into there for your cost. We've tried to straight line your cost moving forward for the next 5. We did a lot of discussion about over the last 5, how have we tried to level that, and it's been a good job. The board created some expectations for that in the budget round, but how do we move forward? Because that's the conversation we haven't had about capitalization. So in this report, this is a high-level review. You're going to hear 3 terms: pay-go, investment, installment financing, which is something that you just did. It is also what pays for this building. That's an installment financing mechanism that we used. And we're going to use the word GO bond, because your question is, well, Scott, if we have millions of dollars in cash, why? Well, because drawing down your cash quickly has an effect on your investment portfolio and your cash available to run your operations. It just has that effect. So let's see, we're going to go like this. So we've done some analysis on essentially about $14 million worth of expenditure over the next 5 years. And you'll see some language in there that says, following Pine Oak signal correction. We're doing a lot, this is drafty, and we're doing a lot of analysis in-house. We met with Davenport, which is our financial bond advisors. They're the ones who advise us on public debt structuring or financing structuring of any type. We met with them last week, and we're continuing the conversation. As a matter of fact, one of the things I hope that comes out of this is that the board wants to hear more from them. I think they would be willing to come and have a conversation about this analysis as well. So we did in-house analysis, then asked them to go through it, ask a series of questions, and we're correcting this as we're going through and trying to make some adjustments. So there are 3 different types of ways you can pay for capital. Pay-go, so you pay as you go along. Mixed installment financing, that allows you to do a blended mix of drawdown of cash as well as some financing. So you can blend that or mix that financing structure. And then the last one is the GO bond. The GO bond is the cheapest of all 3. And it's cheaper for a couple of reasons. If you're not drawing down as much cash, then you're preserving the investment, the effect of investment that your cash has for you, as well as availability for fungibility. And then it also, on a GO bond, you can pay for things on things you don't own. such as highway improvements on roads you don't own. Broome Street is an example. Helm's going to be another one because you'll turn that back over. So those are examples of where you're doing investments on things you don't own. A GO bond allows you the lowest rate, and you're securing it with that. You're not securing it with, they don't have title to the property because you can't give it, if that makes sense. So anyways, here's that first one. That's that state-maintained corridors jurisdictional constraint. So Bond Grove Church, the roundabout 75 Old Providence on dollars in 16 turn lane and intersection design and construction, those have jurisdictional constraints, and that limits that last financing structure that we talked about, which is installment financing, because the bank can't claim the road back. Fair enough, right? So the available paths in that scenario become PAYGO or grant or local match, which is what we do use. You can also do voter-approved GO bonds. You can also pay as you go outside of your cash position, but you would have to get rid of other expenses on your balance sheet in order to do that. They're not categorically excluded from financing, but because of the amount of money, for example, you could do a drainage project financed over against a road, and if it's clearly yours, you could installment financing that. So you're not necessarily excluded from that, but generally road projects come in one neat, tidy package. If you recall, though, when we were talking about Helm, we were talking about how could we've got half of the money for the construction because things like the sidewalks or the bike lanes or anything else that is in that right-of-way wouldn't be funded by one set of dollars, but we could fund it with another set of dollars, if you recall those conversations. And in dollar amounts that are in capital this big that aren't police cars, LGC approval is going to show back up. So they're not categorically excluded. But as we did the analysis and we looked at that 14.2 million, and I'm going to explain to you why that sounds like it's a million more than what you had before. I'll explain that here in just a second. But about 6.9 millions in the state corridors. What would be available to a mixed installment financing out of your CIP list would be about 4.7 million. And then that would allow about 2.5 million in PAYGO. You'd still have to use about a certain amount of your cash in order to do that. Now, the reason that it's not 13 million is I put the paving in there. So you're going to do about $1 million worth of paving. So one of the reasons I woke up at night, about 2, 3 in the morning, concerned about this was our lowest point in time for cash is between now and the end of December. So we have a lull, and that's incoming cash. Our outgoing is pretty predictable, about 1.5 million, somewhere around there a month in ongoing operations. But 3 things happen in addition to one other thing. One, Pine Oak is coming up, and that's about 1.1 million between now and December. That's getting ready to be, remember how slow this has been? Now all of a sudden it's very quick. You budgeted for it, but it's there. Mm-hmm. Second is paving, so that now you're up to 2. Third was, we have a debt service payment in here, but you also have other cash that goes out. A lot of our partners like to bill us up front. That's a nice way of saying it. People like insurance companies, folks like that. They do things like that to us. So a lot of cash goes out, and we try to control that or manage for that over time. But the extra 2.5, and in our analysis, it's probably about 3.5, going out this quick would make a trough twice as deep. So that's been what we stay up at night and think about. Oh, and the Kensington project, that's the third one. Now, those are funded. They're sitting in pots. You've got them all there, but you're still taking down your cash. And while it's assigned or committed fund balance, it's still taking your cash position. And when it does that, it lowers, it increases that risk. And matter of fact, one of the suggestions in the analysis was to do what's called a TAN. And a TAN is a tax anticipation note. Now, I haven't heard that term in a really, really, really long time. Matter of fact, I don't know a lot of places that do them anymore, but one of the reasons you might do it is if you have a financial plan for the following year. So what you're doing is you're borrowing against tax anticipation coming in December, you borrow through your lull, and then you pay it back. It's a bridge loan, yeah. Now, it makes sense, but it really only makes sense if you have a funding process past that protects your cash position, works well within your operating funds and your cost. So when we started to do this analysis, the capital is one thing, but I'm comparing it to our operating costs. So I put a growth strategy into my operating costs. I put 3 scenarios in. So we're playing a little bit of scenario analysis if we have low growth, which is what we had last year or in our current year. And unless you get a lot more influx of investment, vertical investment, you're going to have a year 2 of low growth. Sales tax was low this year, about 3.5%, which took us off guard a little bit. So that was concerning. So we're really trying to play with much more conservative numbers as we talk about your operating costs. But we examined our operating costs moving forward in 3 different scenarios: low, mid, high. The high, I think I put in there at 2.5%. So I really went extremely conservative on this. So I tried to look at the financing and what our cash position would be and what our operating costs would look like under a series of scenarios as we look forward. So the current funding reality we have is an all-pay-go plan. I flagged this as a risk. In year 3 of your CIP, your trough goes down to, or your unassigned fund balance goes down all the way down to 30%, 29.7%. That is a number that keeps me up at night. The actual November cash balance in year 3 goes down to $9 million. That's a really, that sounds like a lot of money. I know to a household that sounds like a lot of money, but for us, we have a $27 million a year budget. That's a very low number on cash position. And that's about $3 million below my 40% threshold. It's not above it, it's below it. And we maintain a cash position because the statutes of the state of North Carolina say we have to. Mm-hmm. Our own policy guidelines say we have to. So what happens here is on this particular chart, what you're seeing is you are seeing your cash positions under different scenarios. PAYGO, which is our current analysis right now. That's where we are right now as a group. It's where you are right now. That's where we are unless you guys consider other options. So we're in PAYGO. So year 1, we're okay, but it's still dropping. As I told you, I got $3.5 million going out the door right now before December shows up, on top of $1.5 million a month. And you can see the different analyses over 5 years. Your lowest year is actually in year 5 in PAYGO. So it's farther out, but your spiky year is year 3. Mixed, you can maintain a better balance and in a GO bond perspective, because you're missing this first year. It assumes that your first year is next year. You couldn't get a GO bond out now because it's the voter. So you've missed a window. Now, let me just as a side note explain a little something about GO bonds. The county issues GO bonds. One of the things you can do under North Carolina law is that once you do one GO bond, let's say it's to build a school, let's say it's 100 million, just use a number like that. When you get down to 2/3, you can go back into that authority built into that GO bond and then borrow again and issue more GO bonds without a voter approval. The North Carolina statutes allow you to do that. So it creates an asset cycle, especially if you're building very large, very expensive things, schools, hospitals, jails, those kinds of, but for us, road projects are expensive. Buildings are expensive, you know, what we're living in now. These are expensive assets for us, rarer than most, but these are our things that are real to us.
So in that example you just laid out, if you had a $10 million GO bond and then you spent $3 million of it, you know, roughly 30%, you can go back for another $3 million or another 10?
You have capacity built in by law. And you can get the same GO rate under the same GO conditions.
So
Does that make sense?
With one election, you can kind of keep pulling from the trough.
You
as long as you're
can.
not pulling the whole amount.
Now, in order to do it correctly, again, these are draft, okay? I really want to pull in Davenport to give a better explanation than I can give for you on that. But it's a good question, it's a fair question. But yes, it creates a asset management cycle where you can cycle your debt structures against your needs. Because here's the deal, tomorrow, you just don't know what you need tomorrow.
Yeah.
We do the best we can with a capital plan. It's our best estimate for you. It's your best guess. It's based upon good things. I mean, a lot of your road stuff is contractual. You've been working on these. The town has been working on these for a long time, okay? So, but this is what happens to your cash position. So this is your cash on hand trough. And where it happens is in year 3 under a pay-go. On the GO bonds, it holds steady. On a mixed, in other words, you're pulling down a little bit, you're installing. Remember in a slide or so ago, we were talking about there's about 6.9 million that is not eligible. It's GO eligible or cash eligible, but it's not installment. But there's about 4.7 million that's available to installment. You may not solve this all in one way, but what it points you towards is towards the GO bond, and there's another reason. So the GO bonds, and I'm not sitting here tonight hammering it, I'm just saying this is what the math is telling us. GO bonds protect your cash position best, and they're tied with mix right now. The engineering confirmations, these are ownership questions that we asked out, so I put it in here. These are all NCDOT owned roads. This is what we're doing our improvements on. This is what we're spending our money. It'd be nice if we could go to DOT and say just pay for them all, but that's just not the way it works. So if we want these solutions now, this is what we've been planning towards and trying to work towards. So a non-referendum GO path, it's currently unavailable because your capacity is 0. You don't have a GO bond right now. You just don't have one. You did do a reimbursement resolution on this building, but I think it's probably past the statutory limit where you could recapture back through a GO bond. So you don't necessarily have that unless, well, again, I want Davenport to come in and do a better job than I'm doing explaining. But right now, what I can tell you is that path just isn't available in our analysis right now.
And that wouldn't necessarily make sense given the rate.
Given the rate. Now, we're at 3.5. It is a declining block, and I've worked that into the numbers. I've worked that into the math.
Yeah.
So, in other words, the first initial debt payment on this was about $2 million, 2.1. If you had kept it at 2.1 for 20 years, that capacity that you built between it would have been your capacity if you had then taken that differential and put it into Fund 403, for example, or put it into a fund and said it's now designated for a prepayment at year 7, which is your model year to do it.
Yeah.
So again, you have in your financial policy guidelines, which I've also given to you folks, it's the really exciting stuff that we like to live by. But right now you have a flip number. You have a minimum 15 and maximum 20 aggregate 10-year supported principal payout of 50%. We think that that actually ought to be,
Yeah, that's awkward.
yeah, you saw that number. We're at 62, which is good, but we think that minimum is, right now, that minimum's good. But also in your debt policy, it confines your projects and puts a cap on it instead of a minimum. So we're going to recommend some changes in the financial policy that I think will help people, you go regardless of which structure you decide to go with. Then we've broken these financing categories down by department so you have a better understanding. Here's another representation. Engineering just really means roads. It's not the engineering department themselves. James, don't get your hope up. That's not 7.2 million for you.
Go to Vegas.
Going to Vegas, that's right. Or to Kings Mountain. You can go to the casino over there. So just wanted to advertise for good old Kings Mountain. Parks and Recreation, it's about 6.5 over these 5 years. Public Services, about 330. That number, there are numbers that are not in here yet. Example, if you received the grant from Safe Grant, that's not in here yet. So we haven't played that model all the way out yet. Public Services, that number should be higher because in that public service number right now is bridge replacement or upgrade or improvement to or preservation of the the bridge over the railroad track. So the mayor can see the choo-choos. So we have to build that in there. You've built it into a reserve position, but we have counted that into your future financial access to dollars. So this also includes in this presentation, just so you know, I put all the data sources that I pulled and put into this. Anytime I do any analysis through AI, we have a little internal policy that we always tell you all the citations we use. That way you know, in other words, I put all of that in here. Yeah. This is our information. So I want the board to know when they say, well, where'd you get the number? We can point to it. This is just a reminder of what your CIP program is for this year. And again, that's why I'm concerned about the current numbers. Got about 978 in combined cash balances, 5.37 in your 403. So that 978 sits in other things, 405, 290, 385, 408, 407, 406, other things that you've done. You've called them Broom Street homes. So that money's sitting there and it counts it. Second pot of money is in 403. You have in the 26-27 year an appropriation in your ordinance. In other words, that's what your capital ordinance is appropriating. It's pulling from, however, those two other funds, that 5.37 and that 9.78. So those are your active projects right now. Just a reminder of where everything is. This gives you a life-to-date authorization. Commissioner Daunt, you had asked, gosh, I can't believe I've been here almost a year, but about a year ago, you had asked about, can you explain to me the ups and downs in our balance sheet? And this really reflects that. You can see the town campus price. It has a life-to-date expenditure number, and then it's got a cash balance sitting in. And you can see, for example, there's a balance sitting in the town campus fund. That is an accounting issue. It's not a, it's just one of these, it's not real cash, but it's one of these odd little things we still work out. We have to work these things out between unassigned and assigned balances. Yeah, journal entries. But anyways, this gives you a better understanding of capital spent to date. Now, What I will tell you is that's a lot. I mean, that's a goodly amount of money. I mean, it's not like you haven't been investing, folks. Okay, I think the staff and I, on a daily basis, or at least at our meetings, we talk about, we have good equipment and good things to serve the people of Waxhaw. So we're very appreciative of that. But it has been money planned for and spent, and it has been spent. So now, if I'd been here 10 years ago, I would have had more of a heart attack, which probably would have been my heart attack range 10 years ago. So. But, here's where you're sitting right now. So that's that 5.9 million. I put this in the presentation because I want, you're going to sit there and go, help me remember where I'm at. And these are your projects moving forward. Now, what we've done is that's $6 million in cash coming out, unless we do something else. Now, as you folks know, we don't exactly expend that way in capital. Some of it's planning money, some of it's right away. It comes in spurts. Last year we had it planned. We moved a lot of that money forward, right? We just moved it forward into forward appropriations and or fund balances. So these are all funds that you've saved for over time. So I gave you an executive report tonight. It is the best bedtime reading you could ever have. I read it every night. It's exciting. But I think it gives you a little bit of a deeper dive and an understanding. So let's go back to Commissioner Wedgeworth's comment about, does this affect these things? Yes and no. It affects it in that, how do you plan? What do you think is the appropriate thing to do? I can't answer that for you right now, but it does make you think about those things. What else do I want to do? Secondly, I've tried to give you an analysis. This analysis has been against a series of scenarios. Low growth, which is the mode we're in right now.
State, yeah.
A medium and a high, albeit conservative in the scenario planning. And all these numbers and what comes out of this report comes from an analysis against our operating costs. So I then put in scenarios for how much did we think operating costs were going up. Right now, costs are above growth. We've been in the other direction for a good while until now. Now, we could snap tomorrow. I don't know what's going to come in. I think all of you know that there's a lot of vertical going on, horizontal going on right now. You're seeing more things happen now than I've been here a year, and it's been pretty quiet, to be honest. It's starting to get a little, well, depending on where you live and which neighborhood you live in, it's starting to get much noisier. Adelina, Emerson, Blythe, and that once that intersection gets corrected, that allows that process to do.
Dirt's being moved at Rogers Pond.
We have 55 lots ready to go where they can go vertical now, and they're doing the back out of 125. So they got the first 55 done. They've been approved. They're there. Yarborough, still behind, but not sure exactly where that one is right now. I do know that they went through a bankruptcy and a new company bought it like that. So that's where that is. Cottage Park is beginning to move dirt now again. So we've been working through a lot of those issues internally. So, I don't know how to tell you what's going to happen exactly tomorrow and how quick a rise or slow a rise may be over time. But yes, there are things, but right now there are not. I don't think enough things could go at vertical between now and December where they'd be on the tax record, if that makes sense. So I have a concern about where we are right now because that's property taxes in North Carolina are considered the most stable. The statutes of the state of North Carolina consider them primary. They are what we use here more than we use anything. So you also have potential future where you may not be able to raise them very high. Now that might make a lot of people excited, but if you have bills to pay and you have other things that you want to do, or devaluation happens. I've managed enough towns in this state where it's depreciating and not appreciating. So, people want different things at different times in the life of a town. So I wanted to give you this snapshot. The other thing that I want to highlight, it's on the very first page of what I handed out to you, is that we talk about the financing strategies. I'm not going to mince words. I am recommending a financing strategy. The discussion by the board to have that and run the numbers. Bring Davenport in, let you guys dive into this and tell us what you think. If we go to something like a GO bond, that is a political decision as well as a financial decision. So I've tried to give you some analysis in here. And I'm not saying, for those watching, we're not saying that we're doing these. I'm looking at your operating, your capital, your next 5 years. We didn't do a lot of next 5 year in the budget. We don't get a chance to do that as much. We did a lot of analysis back, and we talked a lot about that, and about where you want to be and where you folks think you want to be. Now we're going to start talking about how we move it forward. Talking about cash position, where your troughs are, how you finance these things, because here's the last thing I'll put, and this is on the first page. Whether you go pay-go, mixed, or a GO bond, it still has an effect on your ad valorem rate up. I just don't want to mince words. I want to be very straight with you folks. Where you're at now is not sufficient to cover capital. You'll go for a while, then you'll hit a trough. And then you've got other issues to deal with. So I'm trying to give us a 5-year discussion point to have as a group and what might be the best thing available to do that. So on that first page, it talks about each of those scenarios, and then it talks about rates. It talks about unassigned fund balance at the year 5 and debt services. So it puts some things in perspective for you so you can think about these things. My office is always available as you begin to think about these things. I will, if it's okay with the board, I would like to bring Davenport back and dive deeper for you, help answer questions. But if in between now and that time you have questions, I want to make myself available to you. Please feel free to pick up the phone, let me know, and we'll sit down and we'll go through it. But these things concern me. I've been concerned, especially because the other taxes aren't popping as nicely as I was hoping they would. And when you have a 2-year lull, that affects your cash. So those are my concerns. This is an analysis of how we do that. So I'm going to stop. Can I answer any questions right now?
Any questions from the board at this point? It's definitely a lot to digest. It's
just
very,
want-
very dense.
Yeah, I want to say thank you for all the work, and thank you. Now, I'll be up at night thinking about this, so I appreciate it. So I'll be calling you at 2 a.m.
Hey,
When
since you're up,
Be up waiting for the phone call. The phone sits right by my bed.
So, but I do think we're in a different position than maybe 7, 8 years ago. There was a revow, taxes stayed steady instead of lowering, so there was a lot of money.
Well, the
to
rate
be had.
stayed steady, but the
rate-
taxes,
Yeah.
Very
right.
high.
yeah.
Yes, they did.
So the rate stayed steady, but because of the revow, there was more money in the pot. And then the pandemic and ARPA money and all that money was here. And then decisions were made to road improvements and this and that and the other, and now everything's got to be paid for.
yeah.
So we have to make these decisions, but I'm thankful that you're on the case, and we have some good options moving forward. And I think it's a good idea to bring them in, and Davenport, you said? Yeah. And then get more information as we go.
The peak required rate is elevated from where we are currently. That doesn't mean that we have to raise the rate to that point. It just means that
Peak rate in any given year?
Yeah.
So,
Well, let me explain that first page so we can go through that. The peak is that your cash position goes sufficiently low that you're starving some other things. And so you need additional revenue to do this. So you would have to raise a rate at a peak level. Let me explain this one more time. The required ad valorem rate by year 5 is what this says to you right now. It talks about that. And you're at 29, and depending on which way you go, it talks about various rate scenarios under various financing scenarios. Again, I want to point out again, my analysis, and I am open to being questioned to the nth degree. It's fine. I'm not a 100% expert on this. Davenport's much better. But for example, I would say again, in PAYGO, it has the most pressure on your rate.
Sure, yeah, that's apparent.
That's apparent,
right there in the numbers, but if you go full program with a GO bond, you're not necessarily raising the rate.
It would depend on how it came back, okay? GOs require a lot more financial analysis than this. They really run you through the ringer. Where's your rate? GO bonds require you to have something from the rating agencies, all of that kind of stuff. It requires a lot of work. It requires not only managerial work of getting your numbers right, but political work. These are not things that happen overnight. But even in this scenario, based upon what I put in, it requires a big bump at the beginning, but then it declines over time, back to where you are. A GO bond has a higher push at the beginning because you're using probably a little bit more cash for things at the beginning, so that has an effect on your number. It also, because it smooths and when it comes in, because it depends on the size of the escrow account, if it's put into that kind of a thing, the kind of arrangement you agree to with the bond holder, it depends on a lot of things. So my favorite answer as an economist is it depends. But what this is, in the initial analysis, is what this is telling you is it has a very high punch at first, but then it levels down under that scenario.
But the other ones have a higher punch.
They have a higher punch under those scenarios.
And then if you did a mix, you would go from that full GO bond, full program access scenario. If you did a mix, you're going to ratchet it up from there, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it could be small incrementally, but it would still be higher, not lower.
One of the reasons I'm okay with the numbers the way they are, and understanding that we have about 2.5 million walking out the door between now and then that are in capital, is that you might get that grant. And that's about 1.5 million. So that just adds the number right back into your scenario. So I didn't put it in because I don't have it. I only put those things in that I knew I had. So I didn't do that yet. That's why I say this is not a one and done. I don't come to y'all have a slight discussion on a Tuesday night while it's raining outside. This is a discussion that takes a lot more time for you guys to digest it. But yes, it does have a peak. And all three of those scenarios, even PAYGO has a scenario, and it says year one, technically where your rate should be. It's about 3.33. That's a big rate compared to where you are right now. Mm-hmm. Now, I think if I look at your investments and what we've actually taken in, which is covering about 2 cents in actuality, you're probably about 2 cents shy right now. So, again, we're where we're at. And, I would love to have been here 5-6 years ago to have the same conversation. I'm not criticizing any past decisions. That's not for me to do. Well, it's just not for me to do. The numbers are what they are right now. Because one thing you do have is you do have cash on hand. So you're kind of sitting in a position where you can dictate possibly a higher bond rate from the rating companies if you went that way. you do have cash to do these things and you have a fallout effect, maybe you all of a sudden have a very spiky growth that compensates for that loss structure. These are things I don't know. John, I just don't know them 100%. But yeah, this tries to give you an understanding about what that peak rate requirement is. It also, importantly, tries to tell you where your fund balance needs to be at the end, and where you want your cash position. You're in an enviable cash position. It allows you to get lower rates. It allows you to do things. It allows you to fund the trough, quite frankly, because you do have a trough. I mean, if we had a water and sewer system, we'd have money every month, or another type of utility or something like that. So, great news. Always glad to deliver.
Thank you.
Appreciate the cautious conservative approach and the long-range thinking and just the thinking about stability as well. Really appreciate it.
Well, we want it for the next generation because, and then the second thing is you have no idea what's going to happen year 2 or 3. I mean, things always come up. Helene comes up. You know, they just happen, folks. They just do. North Carolina's always had a pretty conservative approach to the amount of money required. The LGC is actually your best friend to the taxpayer because you can go back to the taxpayer and say, we have these constraints.
Yeah, this is an exercise that's necessary, not because we're looking to do something extra. It's because of what's already in front of us.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say.
Okay. Because I know in neighboring communities, you say GO bond and people run for the hills with their hair on fire. And that's because maybe to some folks they were trying to finance something that they were trying to bring in, something new. This is something that's already in front of us. I think, it bears repeating that or for the benefit of the public to hear that because just kind of maybe clarifies it for folks and sets them a little bit more at ease. Not that anybody wants to have this discussion, but obviously you see the numbers, it's keeping you awake and it's necessary to talk about it.
So we do have deeper analysis for the board. I feel like I'm in Led Zeppelin or something. So, and if you had heard me sing when I was 16, you would have said, no, he would never make Led Zeppelin. The Bad Brains, maybe. The Ramones, yes, but not Led Zeppelin. I want to say a couple of things. One, we're not bad off, okay? It's not like we're poor and we don't have growth and people don't like us. People do like this town. They want to live here. This is a place of choice. We have quality employees and quality services. We provide a really nice high level of quality to the citizens, and I think that's a good thing. But things cost money, and that's where I think we're at. And there's good money in the bank. It's not bad money, but I'd like to protect your money as long as I can to use it to the extent that we can do things. Every household recognizes, as you said, John, you got to buy a car at some point in time, and you have to add that extra shed at the back of the house or that additional mother-in-law suite. I'm not speaking from practical experience. So, but we do those things, and then we have to figure out how to do them and how we can live within our means and do the smartest thing we can with some dollars. So this starts. I want to bring them back. I want to continue this discussion, and my door is always open. My phone's always on. Call me. For those of you who like to play with lots of numbers, I have lots of really cool Excel sheets if you'd like to play with them. So, they're lots of fun.
This is a great start to what will be a very long conversation, so thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the work on it.
Appreciate it
Thank
very
you.
much.
All righty, if everybody's okay, we will move to the next agenda item.
Yep.
Thank you,
Sounds
Scott.
good.
All right.
Thank you, Rosie.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Rosie. So we had a desire to have a brief discussion regarding the rec barn and allocating some comp time perhaps to the WAA Little League. This is obviously dependent on availability, but there was the request from the WAA, since we do have a team headed to the Little League World Series, and
Exciting.
those who may or may not have noticed, it's apparently raining outside. So there might be some need by the Little League team headed to the World Series to do some indoor practicing at the rec barn. So if that facility is available, I'm wondering if the board is amenable to providing that facility at no charge to the WAA teams headed to the World Series. Is that something the board is agreeable to? Again, this is completely contingent on availability of said facility. It's not to take away from anyone who has already reserved and paid for their time. It's just to capitalize on any availability that might be there.
And the timeline is, it's a more immediate need where
It is a very
us
immediate
booking
need,
that
exactly.
time would be kind of it would be a little bit of a stretch at this point.
Exactly.
Because the timeline's immediate.
And the hope would be that the rec barn has already been reserved over the next month or so, the amount it is going to be reserved. And the idea being is that if there's any availability, that could then be filled, again, as needed for weather, it could be filled by our Little League heading to the World Series.
It's rare that teams get to the Little League World Series if you actually get that opportunity to go. I think it's a really small cost to ensure that. They're not asking for hotel costs or buses. They're asking for, hey, we need a place of practice due to inclement weather. I think it's something definitely to look into.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it's, I guess Dina would have to
Yep.
check the schedule and
We'll do all that.
see if
So-
it's at all possible.
I think we can see what we can do to make that happen, if that's what the board would like.
That's great. And I think it's important we support our local athletes, especially the ones that are achieving at such a high level. And to kind of show our excitement for that, little town pride, it doesn't hurt to sort of fund a little bit if necessary when they make it to that point. This is definitely not something I'm seeing as a long-term thing. I see it more as a reward for them getting to this level and making it to this point, so.
Well,
We're
my
here for
favorite
that.
movie is The Sandlot, so
Sandlot?
I can't
Aw.
say.
Killing me, Smalls.
Killing me, Smalls.
I remember when we made it to the All-Stars and how fun it was to practice with your peers and having a good place while you're preparing yourself for a larger competition, a regional competition now at this point.
Yep.
Yeah, I totally support that action in finding a pathway to partner with our Waxhaw Athletic Association and the youth that are going forward to,
Yeah.
and so reserving rec barn space and supporting them with based off of availability, that totally makes sense, and I support that, man.
Dan's got a CDL, so he'll drive the bus up to Cooperstown when they make it that far.
It's
Exactly.
only a Class B.
And that's all you need to haul kids in a butt? All righty, well, is that clear then, or are we good on that?
You're good on that.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank you
that's
very
very-
much, Tina.
That's very exciting for this.
That is exciting.
Yep, it is.
I was excited to hear that we had a team making it, so
Yeah.
that was very
That's
cool.
awesome.
Congratulations.
All righty then, our next regular Board of Commissioner meetings will be,
I have a comment.
comment, sorry.
Yep. Just real quick, I don't know if everyone has heard, but Mr. Jim Black has passed away. I was sad to hear about Jim Black's passing, or as he was called, Mr. Waxhaw. He was a great man. Jim Black, he never met a stranger. And I remember meeting him the first time when we were running, and it was like I had known him forever. And he just kind of made you feel that way. I've seen so many tributes on social media, different establishments around town, even the local vet. He was just everywhere, ribbon cuttings, and you just always see that thumbs up from Mr. Black. He really just truly loved Waxhaw. He was always positive, and he will really, really be missed around town. He was always seen on a Tuesday at Queen South for BOGO Tuesdays with Donna and Chuck, the owners, with that thumbs up. And as a tribute today, Queen South has renamed their menu to all of Jim's favorites. So we had, they dedicated it all to Jim, the thumbs up burger. And his favorite burger had a little spice. He liked that sriracha and the Mr. Waxhaw. So I just wanted to say rest in peace, Jim. I can only imagine how big your smile is today, looking down on us. And if we can maybe do something, a proclamation of some sort, that would be great. I know that the family is working toward probably some type of celebration of life, possibly at Queen's House in the near future. It was one of his favorite places, along with Maxwell's and Mary's and all of those other places. But BOGO Tuesdays were quite his favorite. So R.I.P. Jim.
Well, thank you. I definitely echo those sentiments. He was
I-
definitely a staple of the
I
community.
had the pleasure of meeting him once, and you could just tell, and we were.
We both met him at the same time.
Yeah, and it was the first time meeting him, and he had a really calming presence and just a really likable guy. And I can see why on social media people are really missing him, and condolences for the family. And Waxhaw is going to miss a good guy.
Bit of a loss.
For sure.
Okay. Without further ado then, our next meeting, the Board of Commissioner meeting scheduled for Tuesday, August 11th, 6:30 PM here at the Town Chambers. Any other comments or questions or items to discuss tonight? With that, could I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are now adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.